Kathy, will you just make sure you check who's registered and who's there on the register list?
Okay. Sorry, this screen is as good as we got such short notice because Benay is on the
All good.
road.
All
Yeah.
good. Sure. High five, Cabell. Nicely logged on. Oh, he's there.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Oh, very good, thanks. Very good. Good to have you on the call. That's great. How's life been in the fast lane?
It's still about both the things, Paul.
Good. I'm sure it is. I've no doubt about that. Yeah.
High five, Estelle. Thank you for the session today.
My pleasure. Well, as it's simple. I'm trying to say, hi everybody. I'm not going to be here for the whole session, Kaval, just that you know. But I know it's in your capable hands. But I just want to get a feel for it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Estelle. And Paul, please excuse Anita as well. I think with this weather, a lot of people are falling ill at the moment.
Will do.
I think you might give a minute for those who are still joining, but we can just use the time in the meanwhile to say thank you for setting up the session. We are very excited about it, and thank you again for changing the date to accommodate more people. I'm sure that it will be beneficial for us for future use as well.
Well, and you know, Pavel, kudos to you as well. You know, like you sort of, we discussed the initiative and you sort of took it to the next step. So I think it's very difficult for any company to be booking speakers unless they've seen them somewhere or experienced them in some way. And whilst we do, you know, we've got great profiles and videos and everything else, it isn't easy to get that out there. So yeah, we appreciate the opportunity too. Going to be good. Pavel, do you think we should we call everybody on the list or what do you think? There was about 15 RSVPs from PEP. You know, PEP Africa, the group. Do you think we should remind them, or do you think they know, or are we all right?
To be honest, Paul, I do think they know. They just might have other challenges. So, like I said, Anita won't make it today. So, we want to respect everybody's time. We can start in the meanwhile. You are ready.
We can get going. All right, great. All right, Henry, I think you can let us kick off. Good to go, Henry, on our side? Happy? Oh. Henry, all good to go? Oh. Great. Well, high five to everybody out there in PEP land. You know, I think we've got a range of sort of customers and guests on the call today, from sort of PEP Core, PEP Core IT, our friends from PEP Stores, our friends from Ackermans, Keely. Lovely to have you with us as well. Good to have you here, Estelle. And appreciate everything moving forward. So this is the first session we've ever put on like this for PEP. Over the years, we have obviously had quite a good working relationship with PEP Stores. We've had big speaker showcases, annual speaker showcases that we put on in Johannesburg and sometimes in Cape Town, that some of the team have attended. It's a slightly different format that we've got planned for you today, though. Today's session is more about really getting to know the speakers well. I mean, yes, you can attend a big showcase and you can see a speaker, but it's difficult to engage with them. So what we had thought was, the initial idea of putting this together is that each speaker will have 10 minutes. So Anthony is going to be our first speaker. Anthony will have 10 minutes to give you a sort of a sense, a flavor of what he does. And then we'll have 5 minutes to maybe interact with Anthony a little bit as well, just to find out, you know, a little bit about him. It is recorded, but this is staying within the PEP group. We're not sending this to customers, or so if you've got any questions that you feel are maybe a little bit sensitive or that are relevant to the PEP group and not to anyone else, it's fine. It's going to stay in this confines. So this is a nice opportunity, we thought, for you to be able to meet some of our speakers. Now, a little bit about Unique Speaker Bureau, which is now Unique Speaker Bureau International. We were sort of formed in 2009 and have worked with over 1,000 speakers in the past. So extensive experience with speakers across the globe. However, our sort of purpose, if you like, our culture, well, within the and that choice of word was deliberate. Within our stable is more about effective partnerships. So we like to select a group of speakers, if you like, within our massive stable, speakers that are what we deem hold 5-star values, so that they're easy to work with, that they've got a great sort of sense of purpose, that they show up. And they've got a little bit of depth to what they're talking about. It's not something that's just read in a book, and they have some sort of uniqueness to them as well. And they are not as many as you would think. We get about 500 speakers applying to our bureau every year. There's a lot of speakers out there, but there's very few that sort of rise to the surface. And on the call today is a good core of our 5-star speakers. If you engage with them with anything, they will go out of their way to deliver excellence. Yeah, you'd expect nothing less, I'm sure. So that is our format. We would like to get to know them well, and sort of to go from there. And I want to leave you with one lasting caveat. Part of what we do behind Unique Speaker Bureau International now, and we're international, by the way, because we're set up in regions around the world. So we're set up in the US, East and West. We're set up in Southeast Asia and in 14 countries in Africa. So we've got a nice reach as to and a sort of a good diverse kind of sense of what's actually happening out there. What are the trends out there? What are customers looking for? And what are the amazing speakers that we can bring? So just leaving you now with one other part of our structure at Unique Speaker Bureau International is the concept around FIA. So when you run events, whether there be workshops, whether there be conferences, leadership retreats, whatever it might be, we believe in how can we help you fuel this event effectively. So if it's, say, Anthony's our first speaker up, so let's talk about Anthony. Let's say, Anthony, you wanted Anthony to engage with your teams in employee engagement, effective engagement with your team. You picked a topic, you really like Anthony, you think it's going to work well. How do you make sure that you really let everybody know clearly that this is a fantastic opportunity? So you want to make sure all the right people are here. And so we normally create videos, and or Anthony would create some sort of a really great dialogue. We'll send that out to your teams, and then they're aware that, oh, this is what it's about. It's a speaker from Sweden, different thinking. He looks like he's going to be a fantastic speaker to see, and away we go. Then Ignite, how do we get the speakers engaging effectively with your audiences? A lot of our guests today are from learning and development side and human resource development, people support. And obviously you're interested in that sort of component, the sustainability of the message. So if we can get the speakers to interact a lot more, which most of our 5-star speakers can do very effectively. They don't just have to preach from the stage. They can get interactive, get the wisdom of the room, extract conversation and dialogue. And then probably the most important bit, accelerate, the FIA accelerate part. How do we accelerate the message long after the speaker is gone? Is it a once-off flash in the pan, or actually can we get this message sustained into the business properly? And our speakers can help you. You know, again, it can be a series of videos, perhaps it can be little messages. There's various ways, but there's willingness to help. So I hope that's kind of helped a little bit in terms of positioning who we are. We are great friends with PEP, certainly PEP Stores over the years, and we want to be friends with all of you. So we're here today to impress you. I would urge you to start asking questions, put the questions in the chat, or unlock your microphone as soon as the speaker is finished. And then let's catch the speakers. They won't necessarily all stay on for the duration. They'll be coming and going. They're all busy. They're all over the world. Anthony's in Sweden. We've got Saffron, who's in Ireland at the moment. So they're everywhere. Peter is in Dubai. So yeah, just so you know, they're all out there doing their thing. So first up this morning, this afternoon, is Anthony Lassenai. Anthony, to kick off, what are the hidden reasons for employee engagement? Which are the 3 communicative superpowers you need if you want to lead people, serve customers, and create high engagement with your team? And why are people like popcorn? These are some of the questions that we will address. Many organizations have realized the importance of true employee engagement, and we know PEP is definitely one, and that communication and motivation are the keys that unlock high performance. Our next speaker is here to help with just that. He is an international expert in workplace communication, where he has inspired and helped organizations such as Volvo, Google, and Mitsubishi. He is one of Sweden's most popular speakers, and one of USBI's as well, of course, and communication coach. He has written and co-written 14 books on communication and motivation. Anthony, over to you.
What a great introduction. Now I have to live up to it. I will really try to do that. Hello, everyone. Hello, new friends. The one thing I won't talk about today is why people are like popcorn. And I will focus more on communication. And we said we should get to know each other a bit. First of all, I happen to be madly in love with HR. For some reason that happens, and I'm all around the world talking to in HR conferences as well. So it's kind of my home turf, talking to many of you if you're in that industry or area. But then, of course, I talk to IT and I talk to whoever. You know. That's one thing. One thing that I want us to think about as well was that I went back quite a bit in my own memory now to just realize what was one of those pivotal moments for me, and you all have them, you know, like the sliding doors thing. I did this instead of that, or this happened, and that kind of put me on a new trajectory. So I remembered when I was only 7 or 8 years old. I forgot about it completely up until I was supposed to do this with you, and then I thought about it again. So I remember I was 7 or 8 years old. I started school, and I was at this school meeting, the parent-teacher-student meeting. We were in this school restaurant, and the principal had a speech, and it was all good and nice, and there we were, all of us, and then the principal asked if there were any questions. Nobody raised their hand. Nobody asked any questions. I don't know if they were shy or if it was just something else, but I had some questions. So I, 7 years old or something, I raised my hand, and my parents were looking at me thinking, did we give birth to this extrovert? Yes, they did. And I had some questions. So I started to ask a couple of questions. First one, and then another question. And I realized, 7 years old, that I was taken seriously. They listened to me. They smiled. They nodded. The principal gave me good answers to my question. And I felt like I had this experience of the magic of influence in that moment. And perhaps that led me to kind of strengthen that side of me. You see, I'm completely useless when it comes to assembling anything or repairing anything. I don't know how to do that. Don't ask me to put a Billy bookshelf together. I can't. But somehow that part, made me interested, and I got a talent and a knack for it, and I developed it more and more. And I've been kind of studying the topic of human communication and motivation for like 30 years, one way or another. But this happened long time ago. I'm pretty old by now. So this was in the 70s. So if you fast forward 30 years or something like that, 2006, that's when I left the corporate hotshot career behind me. I was working for the global telecom company, Ericsson at the time. And I said, enough now, I want to do my own thing. And I've been coaching leaders and teams ever since. We're talking about 17 years now. And I've found that many of those leaders and team members struggle. They don't feel that they get the impact they want. They say things like, why aren't they as passionate as I am? Or why don't they just do what we say or we agreed upon? Or why do we have so many misunderstandings? Why don't they get me? All of those things happen, and that's kind of pure frustration going on. So I've developed a number of concepts and tools and processes and blueprints and so on to help those leaders and teams who are kind of fed up with not getting that effect that they deserve. So that's when I also talked a lot about communication. Now, I believe whether you are a leader, like a formal manager, or you have an informal leadership style, or whatever, or if you're just a team member, doesn't matter. You need to be good at communicating if you want people to get along with you and that you do things together. Like for me, I view this like if you have a traffic light in your brain, let's say you have a traffic light in your brain. If it's red, it's cannot stop. I can't talk to you right now. I'm too stressed. I'm too whatever threatened. My mission is to make as many brains as I can to have a green light in their brain, because now they can be constructive and productive and creative. That's what I want to do. That's what I'm aiming for. So that impact that they want is translated into some sort of how. How do we do it? Well, we create influence, even power. How do you do that? You do it with communication. Now, the topic on this particular 10-minute thing is the science behind charisma. If you look at the flyer and so on, the digital flyer, it's the science behind charisma. I've looked into that specifically, and it turns out it's the same thing. It's still about human communication. So I'd like to just share with you for a few minutes here 5 of those insights, findings when it comes to charisma that will help you influence people and make sure that you all kind of go in the same way, and your call to action will be heard, so that you will be like me when I was 7 years old and everyone kind of listened to you and what you say. So that's my topic. So I have 5 things to share with you right now, and I have a pen and I have this board right now to work with. So let's go. Oh, I became all blurry. Here we go. 5 things. The first thing, number 1. Be bold. Have bold statements that will increase your charisma. We will put a man on the moon. Much better than to say, let's do what we did last year. Play it safe, no charisma. So you want to have that bold statement, that courageous thing, the bravery behind it. That is a really good thing to start with. Be bold. What else is there? Number 2. Sounds almost like it's the opposite thing here. Showing empathy. Showing empathy matters. Be interested in people. People will love you for that. If you show interest, they will trust you more, they will be more loyal, they will be more energetic, they will do more, they will follow you, because now you've showed interest in them. And the good thing about that is that you become interesting when you are interested. Really exciting things. So use empathy as well as one of your key strengths. It will increase your charisma. What else do we have on the list here? Let's go to the next one. The next one is about really working on your non-verbal skills, non-verbal communication skills, how you look, how you sound, make it dynamic, energetic, and so on. So the word here, the key word here is energy. Having strong gestures, big gestures, bold gestures could help. Having a voice that doesn't sound like the computer fan that is just flatline, boring, but having that dynamic up and down when it comes to volume, when it comes to tempo, when it comes to intonations, things like that will also make you more charismatic. Because energy is like a magnet. If you ooze positive energy, people will be drawn to you. So energy is another one. And let's go to the third one here. Clarity. There's so many things you can do to be clear, because if you are clear, people will remember more. And here's a good thing to know. People cannot act on what they don't remember. So if all you do is to show them useless PowerPoint slides or speak abstract lingo that nobody gets, they won't remember what you say, and basically they don't get a feeling or emotion about it, and then they just don't do it because they don't know what to do. So working with clarity is really smart, working with the power of three, the power of analogies and metaphors. Charismatic people have 50% more metaphors than the average person will have. Of course, the power of storytelling. That is the number one technique if you want to reach not only out, but also in. And so on. There's so many things you can do when it comes to clarity. Most of them are actually about taking away information instead of adding new information. So that's one you can do as well. And then finally, on this particular list, use lists. That's the one. The 5 steps to, the 3 things that, the 7 process, whatever. People seem to like it because, again, it creates clarity, it shows that you know what you're talking about, and you increase your charisma and thereby your influence. I mean, charisma in itself is nice, but it's what you do with it that matters, right? So charisma can be a lot of things. Let me give you a couple of more things to think about here. First, perhaps some of you know people who are not charismatic at all. Actually, if you look at studies, engineers scores the lowest on this list. Charisma is about communication. Charisma, therefore, is a coachable skill. Everybody can be better at charisma, even if the word even means, in Greek, means gift from God, like God's given gift. Yes, some people have a knack for it, some people have a talent for it, but it's the way they develop that talent or just work on being better at it that makes a difference. So everyone can be a better communicator, for sure. Another thing as well, if you don't feel that you still have some of them, perhaps you don't have an expressive body language, you don't want to do that, high presence can compensate for that. If you're really in tune with your message, authentic with your message, you will compensate that type of techniques that you can have otherwise. So make sure that you really believe in what you're saying and then show it as much as you possibly can. That will help. There was just something, this was like a keynote nugget when I talked about, in a charisma wrapping. What I do talk about is what Paul mentioned before. It's about employee engagement. It's about leading, communication, communicate as a leader. It's about serving clients in the best possible way. I call all of that workplace communication. So it comes into presentation, conversation, engaging meetings, analog, digital, hybrid, also performance development when it comes to clarity in goal setting, motivational boosters, and self-leadership. And I do it online and I do it on site. This is not my place. I am actually borrowing this since I'm out traveling right now. I just did a keynote for a TV production company this morning. So this is one of my speaker friends' office that I'm in, and I went all analog on this one. When I'm back in my studio, I have like tons of 5 screens, and it's all over the place, and I have like iPads and I draw things and so on. So we might take a look at that at another point. I will probably stop there and hand it over to you instead. So ask whatever questions you want. I'm here for you. Strangers are friends I don't know yet. That's my mantra as well. So let's go. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope that's given everybody a bit of a sense of Anthony, but I'm sure effective communication, employee engagement is very key within the PEP group. So are there questions you would like to sort of throw to Anthony at this stage?
I'm the first one out, perhaps even getting warmed up yet, but if you do, hey, I'm here for you. What do you think about that? Let me just say as well, if you can spell my name, you will find me. Add me on LinkedIn so we can grow together. If you want to book me, then talk, of course, to Paul and his great team. That's kind of the flow or process of it.
Good idea, Anthony. Sipo, you got your hand up.
And I just wanted to ask Anthony. Hi, Saffron. Anthony, employee engagement and all that is not stuff that you do through a speech and you make a huge difference. Do you follow other processes, or you just do a speech and then that's it? How do you accelerate? After
I had my volume down quite a lot, so I didn't hear everything you said. Was it about if I only do speeches or if I do more? Is that how I understand it?
Yeah. Maybe you want to elaborate, Paul?
Yes, I think Sipo's touching on the Fuel, Ignite, Accelerate, but particularly on the Accelerate bit, Anthony. How do we make sure that the messages get across? So more than just a keynote, do you workshop? Do you
Thank you.
accelerate message after?
I just had the volume too low. Yes, I do more than that. I have training programs for it. I have workshops that I do as well. So that is the acceleration part. You should know that, and let me give you another number here if I can do that. Is it okay if I take 1 minute on that one?
Yes.
This comes from a learning expert, Robert Brinkerhoff. He said that 15% of people who have been trained, 15% only on average, will actually make a positive lasting difference based on that training. 15%. 15% couldn't care less. They were ordered by their boss, so they just found that it was nice coffee. They're just there doing nothing. 70% in the middle, those are the ones that I want to focus on. Those are already, they will do it anyway. Just because I mention it, they will do it. These are the people who will try but give up unless we give them that extra push, that acceleration part that Paul talked about as well. And there are things we can do together, even after inspirational speech with some concrete, tips as well, for sure. But I'm not ever in a company full time. Like I don't do that. I always, go in and do kind of shorter assignments. It could be over a longer time, but it could be like a half day a month, or it could be a 3-day program and things like that. But I'm never kind of employed or working in your office, for instance. I have too many other clients I need to help as well. So that's kind of my model that I do. I have different like presentation skills, programming, and so on. So for sure, yeah, there is. Long answer to that one.
People, you're happy. All right, great. Anthony, you're a star. All the way from Stockholm. Really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Great. And obviously, from the PEP team's point of view, there will be other questions you may have about some of the speakers on the call. Please just send them to us. We will get them answered. We'll figure out a way on how we can move things along. So, speaking of moving things along, our next speaker up is Peter Geldenhuys. So Peter is used extensively as a futurist, innovation expert and strategist on the global stage by some of the world's top business schools. He's also assisted organizations in leveraging their innovation potential by providing them with the skills and insights to be proactive agents in creating the future. I have to say, Peter is probably one of the most intelligent men I have ever met in my entire life. Worked with Peter for a long time. He is the founder and director of the Institute of Technology, Strategy and Innovation, otherwise known as ITSI, and holds a degree in electronic engineering and has an MBA specializing in technology strategy. But what I really wanted to highlight as well is that Peter has launched with ITSI, has launched successfully and registered SA's first university registered course in generative AI. Now, what isn't more topical than that at the moment? Over to you, Peter.
Thank you so much, Paul. And I've got AI on my phone that needs to stabilize my camera, but this AI is definitely requiring some tender love and care. So what's fascinating about the world of AI is that a number of people think that AI is this big monster that we all need to be scared of. And that's so far away from the truth. Because what happens with artificial intelligence is that we can utilize it for a variety of purposes. And it always helps if you switch on the AI, because then it actually helps you to get actually some motion going. So I'm sitting in a hotel in Abu Dhabi, and I've done not in my normal studio. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you into a journey of what AI can do in order to change our world. So one of the important things is you must have heard of ChatGPT, and a lot of people don't know what it is. So unfortunately, a tremendous amount of people have got issues with what ChatGPT is and why is it such a problem to understand what it truly does. Let me share with you a brief presentation to explain to you what is ChatGPT and to demystify it and give you a brief overview of what it can do. Paul, can you see the presentation on your end? Wonderful news. So let me take you through this fascinating journey of what is ChatGPT, the future of work in a world of generative AI. if you think in your clothing retail environment, what would happen in your organizations if you don't have a scanner? You would have lines 4 or 5 times longer than what normally would be the case. And what we are seeing as of late is that utilizing technology, we become so much more efficient. We amplify our performance. So if you ever wondered what this super intelligence looked like, don't fear, because this is what it looks like. It's nothing other than a mathematical model. And this mathematical model literally means that we can utilize this and run it a few times through our ecosystem of data. And then it enables us to get a far better view of language. And this is the big breakthrough. For the first time in human history, a computer has the mathematical foundation to understand language. And very, very similar to you grabbing your phone and writing an email and it's suggesting a word one after the other. What this ChatGTP engine does, it suggests a word. That's it. It's one word being created after the other. And to tell you how it works, hold on to your seats, because in the next 2 seconds, I'm going to explain to you how ChatGTP works. Number 1, tokenization. For every word, we give a value. Yes, that's it. And if we write it in a sentence, we can add it all together. So in order for the computer to understand words, we need to change it into mathematics. So for every word, we give it a value. What we then do is we do something called embedding. We take a look at all of the words in the world and we see which words belong together across languages and within languages. And there you see a 2x2 matrix. You see the truck and the bicycle and the car, they belong together. And the strawberry and the apple and the banana, they belong together. And the other languages, those things also belong together. But ChatGTP does not use a 2x2 matrix. Oh no, it uses a 4096 by 4096 matrix. It means it needs a hell of a lot of computing power. What else can it do? Well, it's called positional encoding. Because if I say, I am happy, I am not sad, or if I say, I am not happy, I am sad, and if you add the words up, it'll give you the same value, but it goes 2 separate meanings. What do? We look at the position of the word in the sentence, and we add something called positional encoding. Hey, we're halfway there. The last thing we do is something called attention, and this was the big breakthrough. Because if we take a look at the words in our English language or any other language, it's confusing because we use the same word for multiple meanings. For example, if I say the bank of the river, what does bank mean? Well, I need to look at another word in the sentence to kind of tell me what bank means, because in the second sentence, the money is in the bank. That it doesn't make sense. But by looking at the other words in the sentence, like river, I understand, that's what bank means. Or I can say money, in this case, that's what bank means. And the last very step is called the Supermax formula that takes the probability of words. And this is what AI is, the transformer AI called ChatGTP. So out of all of these things, we can now give a probability of a word that will happen next. So for example, you look at the screen, the best thing about artificial intelligence is, and there are 40 different words you can choose from. Now, there's a setting in ChatGTP called the temperature. And if the temperature is low, you choose the words that is most likely to happen. But boy, those sentences are boring because you get the same thing over and over again. If you put the temperature higher, it chooses more words. And if you go really, really ballistic, you can choose any word you like. But here's the scary thing, because the next word that is chosen changes the output of the entire sentence. Here on the playground, I, for example, have highlighted it. So the green shows a high probability, the red shows a low probability. Here it creates a sentence. Automating processes. You can see that processes had but a 3% chance of being chosen. And this means that multiple individuals can type the same request to ChatGTP, but the results are all different. And that is because it chooses a word based on a setting. In this case, for example, we say we love AI because it, and in this case, we chooses unlocks. And then unlocks becomes the entrant to the next sentence. It becomes the prompt for the next word. And this is very, very similar to what we see happening in nature. I mean, if that one bird at the edge moves 1 millimeter to the left, that entire flock ends up elsewhere. And that's what happens with ChatGTP. One word that it chooses gives it a completely different result. So it's wonderful to write stories, but how can we use it in the world of business? That is where something called prompt engineering comes from. And this is the future of work, because the future of work means that everyone, every single person, organization In the same way, you need to learn how to use a computer. You need to learn how to communicate with artificial intelligence. Is it something to fear? No, it's not. It's a big dumb parrot that understands a huge amount of words. But what we are seeing happening, and let me give you an example of what we use in our AI course that we teach. We, for example, have created an idea out of nothing to tell our students every single step of the journey, how AI you can use to not only grow a business, but manage it as well. Now, for those of you that know brand archetypes, a company has got a brand personality, and we came up with a very, very simple idea of an app that you put on your phone, and then you talk to your app. You say, listen, please tell Paul that I need to talk to him about an ad hoc opportunity in Abu Dhabi, because I think there's some strategy work that I can do there. And then I press a button, and you know what? It gives me 5 email styles, and I just say, is it appreciative? Is it formal, semi-formal? And within 10 seconds, an entire professional email appears in 5 seconds. And that's what we decided to do. Okay, let's build this thing. We built it in 2 months. And then we said, how can we, ChatGTP, help us with a brand personality? And it came back and said, we think the brand personality should be that of a magician. So we said, all right, well, if it's the brand personality of a magician, give us the colors that we should use for our design. It said, oh, use these blue colors. And that's what we did. So here's Agent Zero. And look at the wording that we use. Your magical email agent. Dictate, transform, be amazed. So do you see how the brand archetype had an impact on it? Then we asked ChatGTP to create a value proposition canvas. And for those of you that don't know what it looks like, that's the value proposition canvas at the top. And we said, hey, now that you have the value proposition canvas, give us a go-to-market strategy, write a press release for us, do a video script, and give us social media post. And it did. But that's not where the journey ends. Because the power of ChatGTP means with automation and computing, we can do so much more. So I did something interesting. I went to Elon Musk's Twitter page. I said, cut, copy, paste. And I said, analyze his personality based on the Ocean model. I said, hey, that's cool. Now we have got the standard press release, but you know what? I then asked it, take this standard press release and rewrite it for me in this person's personality style. And within 10 seconds, it did just that. Look at my prompts. So here's my prompts. So here's a couple of tips in terms of prompt engineering. You first need to get the persona right, because that narrows the number of searches it can make to give you a more accurate result. You need to tell it what the style is and as much content as you have. And I say, you're a psychometrist. I always get that one wrong, Paul. A psychometrist. Don't worry. You know what I mean. And then I say, use the Ocean model and analyze this person's personality. Good, I have it. Now, based on this person's personality, rewrite my press release so that it is ideally suited for that individual. And then I said, hey, let's do exactly the opposite. And I did it. I took exactly the opposite personality profile and it rewrote the press release. And then I asked it, hey, explain to me why you have deviated from the previous one in detail. And it said, we use these words and these words and these words because this individual is an extrovert. But in the previous case, the person was an introvert. So we use these and these and these words to resonate with him. Now, one example is you don't need to only use it for press releases. You can use it for internal communication. And if you think, I don't want to send so many emails, you ask ChatGTP to simply say, I want you to write an Excel macro that looks at the personality profiles of the following individuals, create a unique email for them based on how they understand the world. And suddenly, internal communication isn't what the company says. Suddenly, internal communication says, let me take the central message where the content is the same, but the context changes based on the person that has to read it. Imagine if your internal communication speaks directly to each and every single individual. This is but one example of the unbelievable power that AI will bring to the workplace. How many jobs were destroyed? None. But those that adapt and learn makes it so more efficient. It means that the same amount of people in the organization can do so much more, can be so much more productive. The same amount of people using a scanner can serve so many more people. The same amount of people in your organization using these tools, irrelevant who they are, will unlock a treasure trove of productivity. On that point, Paul, back to you. And yeah, fortunately, I'm not using my skewed camera that is tracking my earlobe rather than my nose. Paul, thank you.
No, great, great, Peter. And a well thought out presentation. It's just want to point out, it's not necessarily easy for the speakers to, just get it exactly right. There's so much they can talk about, how they narrow it down. I thought that was quite exciting. Any questions from the team around this kind of topic? We've got Peter on for another few minutes, so.
Stunned silence, Paul. Stunned silence.
Oh no, I think the cogs are going. Go ahead.
Thanks, Paul. Peter, thank you very much for the presentation. It was quite informative. I think the mechanics behind AI, it will take me a day to digest some of it in terms of what happens in the background. My question is, do you also expand on some of the businesses that have leveraged from this and give practical examples of that? And more specifically to South Africa, and the audience that you're speaking to is retail specific. So I might be zooming in quite a bit, but in your talk, can you expand on those sorts of things as well?
So we ran our very first intake on the AI Masterclass about 2 months ago, and I've got a variety of our first entrants into the course to give me feedback. One of them was the Afrikaans culture organization called the Afrikavier. And what they are doing now is to say, listen, we are in these locations, and they got some feedback around diet and diet styles, and they created menus based on different types of diets utilizing these tools. Then they started looking at communication, very similar to this, to say, but there's different personalities for each of the vacation spots, and how will they then target the different individuals? Another thing they've done is an AI ecosystem that looks at geospatial maps from satellites that can track weather patterns and have an impact on how much energy these vacation spots would need or generate. So in a very advanced way, they can then detect how much energy can they sell back into the grid and how much energy do they need to store their batteries based on a prediction of what the weather will look like tomorrow. You name it. I mean, there is so many capabilities. Here's one tip. There's a website that gives you the capability to download an app, not on your phone, but on your software-defined camera. And the software-defined camera immediately pick up how many people are in a store, and immediately if there's more than 5, it triggers a warning. The same camera can get an updated software that says, oh, someone left the bag behind, tell him he left the bag behind. The same camera can be utilized to do stock checking. The amount of examples that is being utilized in South Africa will blow your mind. But my role as a strategist, keynote speaker, and a futurist is to say, how can I look at your requirements? I sit with you, you tell me what your requirements are, and I build that into the presentation or the consultation. Simple as that.
Keely, you've got a question. Peter, there's questions flying. Hopefully we can get through them quickly because, yeah, we're so constrained for time. But I know it's a fascinating subject. Keely, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. You actually answered my question at the end of that last question, because I was just wondering if part of your keynote, if your service as a keynote speaker would be to recommend how we can utilize ChatGPT and AI in our own business.
I'm actually a horrible keynote speaker, but I do corporate strategy sessions and a whole bunch of other things. So that's my real core focus. At the Institute, we train organizations to leverage the opportunities of the future. I don't have a prepared keynote, really. I kind of go with where the client wants me to go, and I find out what are the key requirements, and I adjust my technology accordingly. After 20 years of teaching MBAs, you kind of learn how to think on your feet.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
We've been booking Peter since 2009. He's a brilliant speaker. We don't get bad feedback with Peter. He just needs to be briefed correctly because he can talk on a lot of different topics. He's great. Sipo, you had your hand up as well. Oh yeah.
There's like 20 different topics, Paul. So we need to start focusing on topics, but nonetheless.
No, of course. Sipo, I think, did you have your hand up first? I think Estelle wants to ask a question as well. Were you first, Sipo? You're fine?
I think Estelle must go first.
Okay, great. Estelle, over to you.
Thanks, Sipo. And Peter, if we wanted to contact you for a strategy session, So it would be for an hour or two maybe to talk to us about what are the opportunities, adding on to Keely's question. How do we do that? I mean, do we do it
You
also
call Paul.
via...
You call Paul.
Paul.
Paul's my agent,
Okay.
man.
So Paul does
And the
everything
team.
from the comms
Paul
to the
does
everything.
everything.
Okay,
He
cool.
does everything.
Okay, got it? It's a
Estelle,
practical question.
No, of course. And then we'll set up a meeting with yourself, Peter, if Kitty wants to join. You know, whatever meetings are needed, we'll set them up. We'll get it across the line so everybody's comfortable with how it's progressing. That's our job.
And even if they want to do our category B AI masterclass, they can talk to Paul. I mean, you can claim this from your skills development spent, make the entire organization more, far more efficient, and chat to Paul, because we are university accredited when you do the training. Paul.
Super. Sipo. I think it would be a good idea now to say, Estelle asked my question, but so for me, it's more I'm not sure if it's a moral question or just authenticity or being genuine. When I receive an email that was emailed from somebody that used AI to write that email to me, is there nothing missing in that narrative?
Personally, I think it's actually more focused, because now I can write an email that speaks to you as an individual, rather than just a generic email that speaks to everyone in the same way. So I want to do the counter argument. I actually believe that AI will give us far more ability to speak to an individual than was possible before. So I actually have the counter argument. And remember, the content isn't created by AI. If the press release needs to be written by you and the communication, so the content you need to create, but then the context can be shifted slightly to resonate more finely with your unique view of the world.
Okay.
I think it's far more focused on individuals.
Good. Thank you.
Lovely question, Sipo, which is going through my head at the same time. And nicely answered, Peter. And you're right. We either get on board with this, or we'll be left behind, and people will be communicating better than us. So there is that balance. Right. Well, up to for our next speaker, Peter Olsen. You're a star. We have Saffron. So you are prepared to be energized, everybody. Saffron is in South Africa normally, but she's actually all the way from Ireland today. So Saffron describes herself as the human specialist and says that working with her is like going to the optometrist, because with the help of the Enneagram, she will find the right lens for you so that you can see yourself in high resolution and in 3D. Lovely. As a socialist and human behaviorist, Saffron has been designing and delivering Enneagram-based leadership development programs for 16 years. I must say, I don't think there's anybody higher than you when it comes to this, Saffron. You're at the very top level you could be. And in 2020, Saffron founded the Personal Mastery Lab, an online classroom that now hosts 4 world-class leadership development programs that have been delivered in 8 countries on 3 continents over the past 2.5 years to just under 1,900 people. Saffron has BA honors in psychology and a master's in identity theory. She's a qualified master facilitator, a level 3 emotional freedom techniques practitioner. I'm sure this means an awful lot to everybody else on the call. And has multiple qualifications as a facilitator and coach in the Enneagram. She's one of the few people in South Africa who is an international narrative Enneagram instructor. I don't know anybody else, Saffron. Saffron loves retail and has worked with retail clients for 12 years. After she fired the lawyers she started her career working with, she now knows the game and the people in it. Saffron has worked with people from store supervisors to executives, and jokes that if she ever stopped teaching, which she never would, she would work in retail. Saffron believes she's the luckiest person because she knows, because for over a decade she's listened to the intimate stories of people from all over Africa and in the world, from all walks of life, and sees humans in high resolution. So I think you can get a sense from this what we mean about 5-star values. This is a speaker who's got such solid purpose. She's exciting, and I can't wait for you to meet Saffron. Over to you.
Thank you so very much, Paul. And I am just coming down from my adrenaline high because even though I'm in Ireland and we're not supposed to have load shedding, I'm sorry, I just got kicked off the call. So I want to say thank you to Paul for being adaptable, and thanks for Peter for stepping in because I was supposed to go after Anthony. But I want to say a special hello to my brother in 7, Sipho. I recognize your voice. I've known you for a long time. So I'm really happy that I heard you on the call because hopefully you're going to ask me lots of questions, everybody, and you're really going to engage me. Thanks for the thumbs up, my friend. You know I love feedback, and if you want to interact with me, everyone, that's what I'm all about. So what I was going to actually start with today was talking about something that I call the Michael Jordan effect. So what do I mean by the Michael Jordan effect? I'm not sure what age and stage you're all at in your lives, but I don't know if you can cast your minds back to maybe like that time in high school, or maybe your time in university, or in my case, the time that I was working in Chicago in 1997, when I became completely enthralled and totally fancy, and have done ever since, Michael Jordan. But if you can remember that time in high school where like the coolest kid in the school, whether it was male or female, it doesn't matter, but like that person that you had a total crush on for like 5 years, you know, when like the person that you have a total crush on, I have a total crush on Michael Jordan and have done for a long time. That person, when they finally recognize you, when they finally see you, when they finally want to talk to you, that moment, just give me a thumbs up if you know what that moment felt like for you, what I call the Michael Jordan moment for me. That's exactly how I felt. Thank you with your thumbs up. I'm not sure your name, Cavello or whatever. That moment for me was how I felt when USBI phoned me and said, Pep Stores want to do this showcase. I was like, oh my gosh, Pep Stores. I am so excited because I have been in love with Pep Stores for years and years and years, because I know that you are the poster kids for basically the business case, literally. You are the poster kids for the business case of why I do what I do. And if you don't believe me, you can totally phone the training manager at SPAR Central Office, because I literally used to use Pep Stores as a case study whilst I was training my other retail clients, because Pep Stores absolutely exemplifies, and I'm not sweet talking you, I'm serious. You 100% exemplify how people drive purpose, and purpose is how we basically create profit. Because I know that Pep Stores started in a little Dorpy in the Northern Cape, like in the 1960s, and now you are the biggest retailer in Africa. And what I love about Pep Stores, and the reason you're the most successful retailer in Africa, is that I know that you sell more nappies than any other retailer, and I know you sell more school shoes than any other retailer, but what you actually sell, and what you've been very purposeful about, is that you are all about human dignity. And that's what I'm all about. It's about bringing dignity to the people of Africa, no matter who you are. And I love the fact that you encompass this with every single one of your employees. And because I hack into people's lives for a living, just by the way, when I go to small dorpies all over South Africa, I go into the stores and I actually find out how people feel. I also, in preparation for today, went on to Indeed, for example, and I had checked out what your employees really think of you. And you are legit. You are for real. Your employees strongly believe most of the time that you are about purpose, appreciation, happiness, and all the things that I'm about. And not only do I love Pep and have a total crush on Pep and Walmart, just saying, like I do Michael Jordan, but I also absolutely love retail. And Paul is absolutely right. If I had to leave the Personal Mastery Lab, which is something I created after COVID, I would go into retail, but obviously I'm never going to leave my Personal Mastery Lab, because people are my speciality and people are my thing. But the reason I love retail so much, everyone, is because for me, retail 100% mirrors human behavior in social dynamics. Every single one of us, it's like school. Like I always say to people, raise your hand if you went to school. And if you haven't got your hands up now, I know that you're not listening to me, because we all went to school. And what I love about that is that you know, we all understand the school system and we all understand retail because we all emotionally connected to retail. We're emotionally connected to the food we buy and the clothes we wear, and that sense of dignity. And because I'm a sociologist and I hack into people's lives for a living, that absolutely fascinates me. And I actually determine the size of small towns across Africa based on how many PEP stores they have. I'm one of those Gautengers that is about to migrate to the Cape, and the little town that I've just bought a farm outside is called Gansbaai. And when people say to me, well, like, what's Gansbaai like? I immediately answer, it's got 3 PEP stores. If it only had 1 PEP store, it would be a small town. If it's got 3 PEP stores, it's like a big town. And if it's got a PEP home, then it's like a town that's really happening. Do you know what I'm saying? So for me, this is like the best thing in the whole world. So what I do, I have a keynote called Crack Your Code. Truthfully, thanks for the high fives. I do love the feedback. So truthfully, the majority of my work is actually online leadership programs, hybrid in-person leadership programs. I'm busy working with the Irish as we speak. But honestly, I love coaching, I love connecting, I love people, and it's been an absolute privilege to have my career. But my keynote is called Crack Your Code. And essentially what I do is I bring my conversation to 200 people rather than just 20 people, for example. And what I do is I teach people the Enneagram. So what I'd love you to share with me right now is either, do you know your Enneatype? And Sipho, if you don't remember yours, I remember yours, because once I've got your number, I never forget your number. I might forget your name and I might forget your position in the business, but I'll never forget your type. Because I always say, once I've got your number, baby, I can tell you the whole story. I just need to know the names of the players. And it's my absolute passion. And I've been studying the Enneagram since 1997. And if you don't like the Enneagram, then learn it with me. Because if you don't like the Enneagram, I think you were badly taught, but obviously I'm biased. So if you do know your number, I'd love you to put it in the chat bar. If you don't know your number and you want to know your number, then I could hook you up with a few questions, but you're going to have to let me know whether you want to know your number. But your number, I actually call your code. And the whole point of learning our code is to get us out of a box. It's not to put you in a box, because the truth is we do all have a bias. And as I always say, if you've got a brain, you've got a bias, and our bias carries energy. And our bias will impact whether or not we interpret you as empathic or not. Our bias will absolutely determine how we interpret whether or not you're trustworthy, for example, because things like empathy and trust and communication look different for different people. So that's why I say I'm like the optometrist, because once we've got the right lens, we can really learn, and this is primarily what I teach and talk about. Once we've got the right lens, we can really learn how to speak so that other people can listen. And more importantly, we can really learn how to listen so that other people can speak. And I think that's the key, because as some of my predecessors, my other colleagues have said, communication is at the very basis of any high performance team. So what I teach and what I talk about in my keynotes when I'm talking about cracking your code, I essentially give people a map, an insight, a way forward into how, for example, and how is the operative word, how to build happiness. Because happiness is a skill. And I teach people how to give themselves permission to be included. Because we talk about diversity and inclusion, but unless I give myself permission to be included, I'll never feel included. And I want to emphasize the word how, because I'm all about the doable, practical things that we can actually take into our real lives, which is why I love to interact with people and get people talking. I've got 20 people in the room or 200 people in the room. I get off the stage and I have plan A and plan B, because I'm also a 7. It seems to be a bit of a theme. And then I always say I've got plan A and plan B, and then I deal with what's in the room. And I'd like to demonstrate that today by getting you all talking. I'm much more interested in what you want to know. So what do you want to know from me today? What do you want to learn about what the Enneagram has to offer today? What are you curious about today? Or what kind of insight would you like to get about your own type, the type 7, for example? So I'm going to actually stop talking. And as you can see, I keep it simple. And by the way, I always joke and say my unique selling point as a speaker is that when there's load shedding, I'm your girl, because I don't need technology. I don't even need slides. It's all here in my head. And once you give me your secrets, I'll make it happen for you. So I'm going to hand over, even though I've only just started, I'm going to give the 10 minutes to you. And I'm going to ask you, what do you want to know? Either about your Enneatype, or do you want to know your type? Because I can hook you up with 6 quick questions so that you can all find your type. Or what do you want to know about me and what I have to offer you as PEP? Because honestly, I feel like I'm on the most exciting date I've been on in 10 years, because I've been wanting to meet you all for years. I so want to work with you because I think you are a super cool organization. And I basically think we speak the same language. So I'd like to hand over to you. Put your hands up. Sipho, maybe you can give me a question. I know you had some for the others. Otherwise, what do you want to know about your code?
Maybe to give Saffron Sipho, just to give maybe a feel and talk about the PEP. I remember you telling me what is a PEP when I wanted to join PEP. You told me what is PEP's number and what does it mean, just for us to get a feel of the Enneagram.
Yeah, okay, cool. So, okay, so I think retail as an industry is a 7 industry. But again, I wouldn't be as presumptuous as to decide for PEP what type as an organization you are, because I have never worked with you. However, from what I can see of PEP, and Sipho, please, if you have anything to add, let me know. What I can kind of sense about PEP is that PEP might be an 8 organization. So shall I tell everyone a little bit about the 8 and why I think PEP might be 8? Because I feel like the whole notion of dignity and giving people human dignity, no matter who you are, feels like a very kind of protective energy. Does that make sense to all of you? But if it doesn't make sense, ask me. So Sipho, should I go with the 8 and maybe talk a little bit about this type 7 and the type 8 and how and why I see PEP in that space?
100% aligned.
Sorry? Yeah.
I'm saying go ahead, we are aligned. I also get the same sense.
Lekker. That's always such a relief for me. Okay, and of course, if anybody else has got any questions, please do go ahead and ask me. Okay, so I'll just give you a little brief overview into the type 8 on the Enneagram. The type 8 on the Enneagram, firstly, I want to share with you that each one of us have what we call 3 centers of intelligence. Just put your hand up if you knew that. We're actually like so much more intelligent than we know. And essentially what I mean by these 3 centers of intelligence, everybody, is that we've got what we call our mind brain. And we're all really, really good at focusing on our mind brain because we all went to school. And our cognitive intelligence, or our mind brain, is the brain that we've all been taught to focus on. But actually, we've also got what I describe to be our heart brain. And our heart brain has nothing to do with that organ that pumps blood. It's got to do with the fact that there are billions and billions and billions of neurons processing information right here in your solar plexus. So just give me a thumbs up if you are resonating with that, if you're like really astute at feeling for how people are feeling. And then the last brain that we have, what's called our gut brain, is like our intuition. And we've all got all 3, but what we tend to do is we tend to favor a center of intelligence. And I always say, if you're leading teams, this is the first thing to learn to listen. Is what's important to this person? Is action and tasks important, and getting things done? Because these are the gut-orientated people, because what they're sensing in their gut is how the world is impacting them, and they've got to make an impact back. And that's why I put PEP as an 8. And the 8 on the Enneagram belongs to what we call the gut brain. These are what we call the body types. And the reason I put PEP there is because I feel like PEP's mission, PEP's purpose was to make an impact on Africa and to really protect the people of Africa and bring them human dignity. Because the 8 on the Enneagram and the energy of the 8 is all about justice and fairness and equality and respect, and most importantly, protecting the discriminated and the underdog. The 8 in your team is gonna get the murrin if they feel like somebody's been hard done by. In fact, I've got stories of 8s who are still fighting on behalf of their colleagues that they left in their previous company, even when they've gone to a new company, because 8s find it really hard to let any kind of discrimination or injustice go. And that, of course, is a beautiful gift about the 8. It's one of what I call the superpowers of the 8. But the thing is, and that's the thing about all our superpowers, they kind of come at a cost. They come from a shadow. And the cost that the 8 often has to pay for this massive compassion and this enormous heart and this big caring and wanting to help other people, the cost is that they get so intense and they get so into it that they can often bulldoze their way in and almost intimidate people and almost get people a little frightened. And then people can label them the 8. People can label them a bully or angry. And I always say, 8s are not angry people. They just get angry at injustice. And as I often always say, and this is how we misinterpret people, when an 8 is fighting, it's an act of love. When an 8 is angry, it's because they really care. And 8s have huge staying power when it comes to having people's back, because the 8 will not tolerate any kind of betrayal. So again, what I love about 8s, and I have to say I have a tiny little 8 bias, the 8's all about the truth and seeking the truth and getting the truth. And if you are an 8 or you have an 8 in your team, you must know that the minute you're in an 8's team, they will have your back because now you are in their tribe. This is what I love about 8s. But what I love about the Enneagram and explaining the Enneagram, and it's totally different from every other personality typology, because what the Enneagram doesn't do is just describe behavior. What the Enneagram gives us is a deep understanding into what drives people's behavior, because it's that driver that we get emotionally attached to, and whatever we are emotionally attached to, we will promote and protect. And that's how I think team dynamics can get really confusing and human potential can get really lost, because we don't know how to communicate in the deeper truths. We don't necessarily know how to understand what's really driving somebody. And what's
Thanks,
really...
Yes. Sorry, I just got to. We've got to. I know you're getting very into it and everything, but we've run out of time. We've got to move on. So there's a number of speakers to go through, but Saffron, thank you very much for your passionate view on PEP as well. You know, see if it was a good idea maybe to sort of give an example. If everyone's happy to move on, if there are questions, please send them through to us, as we said, and then we'll make sure Saffron gets those, or we can set up meetings accordingly. But it's a very important topic from a very skilled speaker on the subject. All right, so on to our next speaker, Max Moyo. Max's deep-rooted yearning for mental emancipation, his passion for people, his thirst for advancement led him to embark on a journey of self-discovery. This culminated in the birth of Ignite My Potential, an organization in which Max is the founder and CEO of. Max Moyo has been in the financial services and petroleum industries since 1991, worked for giants such as Old Mutual, Sanlam Life, Discovery Health, Liberty, Alan Gray, and consulting for the likes of Standard Bank, Supersport, DSTV, Law Association of Zambia, and various government institutes in South Africa and on the continent. He's a world-renowned dynamic speaker, author, brand internalization specialist, and human transformation coach. The seed was planted as a young child when he listened and was captivated by his grandfather's oratory prowess. He is constantly inspired by the transformative ability of the spoken word. Max, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. The joys of the internet. Can somebody say hello? Can somebody say hello so I know you are there?
They respond to high five, Max.
Hello, Max.
Awesome. Let me just get to my put my presentation on and we can get going.
Thanks, Max. In the format, then 10 minutes, and then we'll have maybe 5 minutes Q&A, if that's okay. I'll give you a warning, 1 minute to go. Thanks.
All right, cool. Awesome. Can you see my slide?
Can, Max, perfect. Thanks.
Awesome, awesome. Good afternoon. My name is Max Moyo, as you've already heard, and I'm looking forward to just spending a few moments talking about my favorite subject, which is leadership. And in this case, we've called it leadership pain. Leadership pain. I'm going to start by just sharing my own personal vision. I have a vision of a world of over 8 billion people who embrace their unique identity. They harness, develop, and deploy their unique talents in pursuit of a life of purpose. When that is done, my purpose on earth is done. And I've often said that I want to die on stage. I want to speak, sit on the chair, and check out. What is your vision? What is your vision? And that's the conversation I often start my conversation with asking leaders. And when I say leaders, that's an inclusive term. I'm not just talking to leaders as in you have a group of people that you're leading. I'm talking to leaders in terms of you actually lead your life first before you can lead others. All right, so we are going to have a quick one around leadership pain. But before I do that, I have been a little busy. So what you're seeing on screen is the books that I've written. Number one, you are the 8th wonder of the world. It speaks to the uniqueness of each individual. And you think about it, this morning when you were preparing to go to work, you looked in the mirror. And when you looked in the mirror, you came face to face with the 8th wonder of this world. There's never been a human being like you before. There's no one like you as we speak. And when you die, there will never be another human being like you again. And so the book really speaks to our uniqueness. And as you will see later, that leadership stems out of your uniqueness. The second book says it's not enough to know that you're the 8th wonder of the world. You got to become yourself. And beyond that, the third book says, who moved my ladder? You live long enough, somebody's going to move your ladder. And this book really is about when life hits you for a 6, as they say in cricket. So it starts really with a personal story. It's 2005. I'm a sales director for Chatter Life. In black circles would say I had arrived. We then buy another insurance company called Capital Alliance, but we're already 100% owned by Liberty Life. And of course, one day at a group exco, somebody said, well, we got 3 MDs, we got 3 sales directors, we got 3 of this. Why don't we amalgamate everything into one? And in that one move, 2 of us who were sales directors and MDs lost our jobs. And so I woke up one morning, 5 million rands in debt and unemployed. And I was to spend a whole year at home. And then I asked the question, who moved my ladder? And while I was still trying to deal with that, my dear wife also said, well, this thing ain't working for me. We call that a double whammy. When you lose your career and you lose your family. And so the book really is about what do you do when life hits you for a 6? How do you deal with the pain? How do you recover? And how do you rebuild? And everybody has to go through this process, because if you live long enough, your ladder is going to move. And of course, my flagship, the leadership call. Ultimately, every single human being was born to lead. And we're never going to be effective until we walk into our own leadership. And so the book really speaks to the fact that we're called to lead, and it then gives you quite a lot of nuggets around leadership. All right. And so when I speak around, before I speak about leadership pain, and I don't have enough time to actually, because normally when I talk about leadership pain, I will start by talking about leadership itself and share with you the building blocks of leadership. But, you know, just to give you as a background, I challenge people. My first challenge to you would be try not to become a person of success. Rather, try to become a person of value. And of course, the question then that people will ask is, how do I become a person of value? Value is determined by a refined uniqueness. And this is very important because you are refining your own uniqueness, which means every single individual has the capacity to be valuable. And of course, refined uniqueness then leads you to becoming significant. And here's my explanation of this significance. Significance is the capacity to walk into a room and shift the atmosphere. Not now, that if you are able to walk into a room and shift the atmosphere, you are a leader, because leaders have influence and they have impact. And so the conversation really is about, how do I become impactful, or how do I become influential? And so there's my definition of leadership. And you're going to see the words in red are the building blocks of leadership that I would actually normally discuss if we're going to do a conversation around leadership and leadership pain. And literally, leadership is the capacity, number one, to influence others through, number two, inspiration, motivated by, number three, a passion, generated by, number four, a vision produced by, number five, a conviction ignited by, number six, a purpose fulfilled by, number seven, your talents manifested through your unique, irresistible difference, which is actually, if you want to figure out that, irresistible difference comes from ID, which is the shortcut for identity, your capacity to be the difference. All right, my fellow leaders. So where am I going with this? So leadership pain, and I believe that leadership basically sits on three legs. Number one is a declaration of independence. Your first step towards leadership is a declaration of independence. Why am I saying that? Because you can never lead the people that you need. And so what do I mean by that? So often we can't lead in the communities we grow up in because they never take us seriously. Or if we lead in the communities that we come from, we have challenges around leading people that we grew up with. And so the first step in leadership is to declare independence, number one, from your culture, from your community, from your family. In other words, leadership begins the day you decide how you are going to show up to the world. Now, when I say declare independence, I don't mean you don't need your culture. I don't mean you don't need your family or your community. What I mean by a declaration of independence is that when it comes time to make decisions about the organization, I will make the decision that is best for the organization, irrespective of who gets impacted. Let me give you an example. When I say you can never lead the people you can never lead the people you need. Let's suppose there's a group of people that helped you to get to the position that you have. If you don't declare independence from those people, the day you have to make a decision that's critical to the organization, that goes against the people that brought you there, you are going to be in a problem. After all, how can I make the decision? How can I make a decision that will cause the person who helped to get here to be unemployed? You get the picture now? Let me put it differently. Nelson Mandela did not need the African National Congress. The African National Congress needed Nelson Mandela so he could lead the African National Congress. Our current president needs the African National Congress. Therefore, he's struggling with leading the African National Congress. And so most of us have actually questioned this. There are certain decisions that are so obvious that the president could have made, but with the fear of being recalled, he finds himself compromised. You can never lead the people that you need. When you have declared independence, that means you make the right decision irrespective of the impact that it will have on you. In other words, I will make the right decision, even if it means I might get fired. So that's the Declaration of Independence. We can go deeper, on a deeper level. Let me give an example of culture. So if you are, I'll use African culture. In African culture, we are brought up in an environment where they say, when men speak, women keep quiet. That's a cultural upbringing. Now, here's the problem. Now you are in a corporate, and you're a man, and your boss is a woman. If you do not declare independence from the way you were brought up, you're going to have a problem. We can turn this around, where maybe as a woman, you were told you're not supposed to speak when men are speaking. If you don't declare independence from the way you were brought up, when you get at the boardroom, you might find yourself sitting in the boardroom, keeping quiet, because that's how you were brought up. And so there's a declaration, what I'm talking about. So each one of us have to, when you walk into your leadership, you got to look and say, what is it about my background, my upbringing, that can stand in the way of my leadership? How do I declare independence from that? That's the first step. The second thing that
1 minute left, Max. Just a one minute reminder. Okay, cool.
All right, I've got 1 minute left.
Yeah, and then we go to Q&A.
Okay. So
Sure.
the second one is integrity. Integrity simply means doing what you say you will do by when you say you will do it. You want to lose impact as a leader, lack integrity. That is the foundation of all influence, is integrity. So we can discuss that in greater detail, but I want to go to the third one, which is the title of my conversation, which is leadership pain. So pain threshold. So leadership sits on a declaration of independence, it sits on integrity, and the third leg that balances off is pain threshold. Now, what's interesting is that in terms of leadership is that leadership and pain are always connected. Leadership and pain are always connected. Most of us were shocked at the amount of pain that comes with assuming leadership. And unfortunately, very few, if any, schools teach about leadership pain. So what I've learned is that leadership, one is leadership. You are going to bleed if you choose to lead. Number two, leadership is also brutal. It is both beautiful and brutal. And if you're a leader, if you are leading and you're not bleeding, you are not leading. If you're not bleeding, then you're not leading. So let me talk about pain. Where is this pain coming? Number one,
Max,
as a leader,
I think we're going over, Max. So
okay, I'm going to round off.
Yeah,
I'm going to round it off.
Sure. Okay.
So as a leader, you will only grow to the threshold of your pain. So in other words, if you want to go higher as a leader, you have to increase your pain threshold. Let me give you an example. You've got to dig deep to fire a friend. You have to dig deep. When you have someone who helped you to get where you are today, but they are no longer relevant in terms of where you want to go, and you need to let them go so you can connect to someone who can help you to get where you need to go, that's painful. When you have to cut costs and let go of people that you know, they got families, they got responsibilities, but this is the best decision for the organization. So what you find as a leader is the day you assume leadership, you're going to be in pain. It's also painful when you are pushing people because you know what their capacity, their capability is. So you're stretching them and they think you do that because you hate them, but you know that in the future, they can be even better off. And so we find that if you choose the path of leadership, you choose the path of pain. But then pain is part of growth. And so when I have enough time, I can talk about the pain equation. Growth is equals to change. Change is equals to loss, and loss is equals to pain. Therefore, growth is equals to pain. And so when I talk about leadership and pain being together, it's because the number one job of a leader is to cause growth. And if you are causing growth, you cannot cause growth without causing pain. I'm going to stop there because we're running out of time. Questions?
Thanks, Max. Yeah, and it's I could listen to you for a long time. There's a reason why you are one of our busiest speakers from this year and last. Yeah, is there any quick questions that we've got for Max while he's here, or do you want to just ping them to me and we'll come back to you? Max, I think we're good. There's no one got their hand up or anything yet. I know everybody's kind of interested in kind of moving it along quite nicely. So thank you. You're a star. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Great. All right. So next up, we have Richard Wright. So Richard, it gives us great pleasure to sort of introduce Richard, who's an expert on the power of the brain. And believe me when I say he's a true inspiration. Without giving too much away, his story is a profound story of pain, passion, hardship, and endurance. And let's just say he went through it all. His story will deeply resonate with all of us, whatever your life circumstances may be. So enough from me. Over to you, Richard. You've got 10 minutes, and then we've got maybe 5 minutes to sort of wrap up with any questions after that. So all the best.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Paul. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me, for hosting me. I'm really delighted to be here. I'm sure exactly the same thing as all the other speakers. Very, very hard to fit in what I need to say into 10 minutes and even just touch on. But let me see what I can do, and I'll start at the beginning and see where we go. And the place I want to start is this concept called the future, which is quite an interesting place to start, I would imagine. And I'm just getting my clicker sorted out. There we go. So I want to start with the future in mind, and I want to ask you a question, and it's a real question. It's not a presentation question. It's a real question. So wherever you are sitting right now, I'd love you to just answer this for yourself. And that is, do you want to be exactly where you are right now on this day in 12 months' time? Is there anybody that wants to be exactly where you are right now on this day in 12 months' time? And I think I can pretty much guess that answer. There are very, very few people that are absolutely enamored with where they are. They're comfortable, they're happy, and pretty much they've ticked all the boxes, and they're very happy to be in exactly the same place. I hope I never get to that place, by the way, because that I think would be where everything goes downhill. But essentially, all of us want to be in a different place. We imagine being in this other place called the future, and we want the future to be somewhat better than the place we're currently in. And there's a problem with that, because it means that something has to change. Because without change, you can have no future, only a recurring past. In other words, if you want more of what you had yesterday, just repeat yesterday. And we know that that is the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So if we want a different result, something has to change. And what happens is that we fail so often and so dismally in our attempts to change, because we try and change our behavior and our actions, when in actual fact, our behavior and our actions are as a result of what we think. So what we really need to do is change our thinking. So my company is called the Enrichment Project. And essentially, my purpose, my why for existence is in trying to enrich people's thinking, or trying to help them to change how they think in a way that's going to help them to get to where they want to get to, whether that's on a personal level or on a corporate level or professional level or whatever that is. So we start with the finish in mind, and it's a concept of where's the finish line. And you'll notice that there are 3 letters that are a little bit bigger and they're a different color than the rest, because that's kind of what happens en route to our finish line, is this idea of, what the fudge and what happened. So that's what I want to talk to you about today in the brief time I've got, is no matter where you're at, no matter where you fall in under your organization, you've all got an idea of what the future looks like, or where you would want to be, or what the expectations are. But the problem is that we are living in South Africa right now. We're in a world of pain with load shedding and inflation and the rand exchange rate and the political situation, and we're looking to vote next year again, and it's not a fantastic or favorable environment. So how do we even get to that finish line when everyday things are coming at us from a different angle? Now that is Hobie Beach in Port Elizabeth, and it's the start and finish line of Ironman South Africa. And Ironman was something I was really, really good at when I was a little bit younger. I've never been a pro, always competed as an amateur athlete, but I was able to finish the 3.8 kilometer swim, the 180 kilometer cycle, and the 42.2 kilometer run faster than more than 50% of the pro fields. I finished 16th overall in the race, won the overall amateur race, won my age group, qualified for Kona, Hawaii. But in 2015, I realized I wasn't quite so invincible. I was diagnosed, well, I'd go for a run, go for a cycle, and literally after not much exercise for about a week after that, I was unable to do anything. I recognized the symptoms because I'd been diagnosed with a tiny little tumor on my pituitary gland all the way back in 2004. But it was benign, non-cancerous, right in the middle of your head. And a prolactinoma secretes this thing called prolactin, which is pretty much useless in the male body. It's what women need to secrete in order to lactate, prolactin. So when you breastfeed as a woman, you need to secrete a lot of prolactin. And my prolactin levels have very often been higher than that of a lactating woman. And one of the side effects amongst men is that you can actually also lactate, which is why I always wear dark clothing, dark t-shirts, because that sort of covers that up. I'm just kidding. It never happened to me, and I'm very grateful for that. At this point in time, in an audience, I get to say those words, hey, my eyes are up here. But fortunately, it never happened to me. It was benign, non-cancerous, responsive to medication, and that was a journey of about 12 years. But back in 2015, recognized the symptoms, and I knew that that something was wrong. I was out of whack. I went to go and see my neurosurgeon. We did the MRI, and that was the first time in my life that I heard the words brain cancer and Richard Wright in the same sentence. But now I'm an Ironman athlete. I've always lived my life well. There's, wielded it now. There's no ways it can possibly be me. And I was determined that I was going to go and finish the Ironman. I kind of figured if I can do this Ironman, there's no ways I have this form of cancer. I did what we would all do. I went to Dr. Google and I searched and searched, and I couldn't even find that form of cancer. It's that rare. I had to go to medical search engines. And what I found there was that, Richard, if you do have this form of cancer, it's one of the rarest forms of cancer on the planet, and it's one of the most aggressive. There is no cure for it. There's no research done for it, just because it is so freakily rare. So there's no ways I've got this. So imagine then I got to the finish line that year, which in what was the slowest Ironman that I'd ever done. I did it for a charity, and it was just to kind of get my head around I'm doing it for something greater than myself, and get through the world of pain that I'm in, just get to that finish line, because if you can get to the finish line, you don't have brain cancer. So imagine then that feeling of triumph and victory. And this is a picture my daughter took at the finish line. She was 10 at the time. I know it's grainy, but it's the only one I've got that really captures the victory and the triumph of that moment. It was a real, yes, I don't. And about 5 days later, I was booked in with my neurosurgeon for a lumbar puncture, because that's the only way to determine a brain cancer. You can't get it's not a blood test because of the blood-brain barrier. And so I went in, and he'd done his research. He'd never seen that form of cancer before, pituitary cancer, and he couldn't find a neurosurgeon in South Africa that had. But he consulted with his fellows overseas, and they all said the same thing. In fact, they said two things. Number one, we highly, highly doubt whether it is this form of cancer, because it's so rare, and it just doesn't fit the demographic. And number two, if it is, you need to get it out as soon as you possibly can, because that's going to be his only chance of survival. So I went in for this lumbar puncture. My neurosurgeon had a lab standing by to try and process the results as soon as possible. And imagine then, much later that same day, being wheeled into theatre. And that shock of, I've got brain cancer, and okay, but we're going into theatre. It just all happened in such a blur that I didn't even get hold of my parents and let them know what was happening and where I was going, because I hadn't let them in to anything up until that point. And I just didn't even know how to do that. And besides which, it's all going to be okay, right? It's called transfonoidal surgery. They drill in up through your nose and get into your brain. It's just the best way to get to the pituitary. And when I came to, the only thing I wanted to know is, hey, doc, did you get it all? And the answer was an amazing one. My doctor said he was pretty confident that they got it all, that it had grown since the last MRI. They had to cut it up in tiny little pieces and take it out from the inside out, but he was pretty confident he got it all. They'd scraped the pituitary, they were able to leave most of it intact, but in his words, you're going to be in menopause for the rest of your life. But that didn't matter because, hey, menopause is a whole lot better than death, right? So in my mind, it was an immediate Iron Man 1, brain cancer, none. And about 6 weeks after the op, I had to start routine radiation therapy. And that really was just supposed to be the insurance policy. It was just to make sure that the cancer hadn't come back. And so every day I went into the Sandton Oncology Center, or the Sandton Suntan Clinic, as I like to call it, to have my brain nuked. And day after day, you're going in there and the pain just gets worse and worse and worse. The swelling gets worse and worse and worse. And the problem with brain radiation is that the swelling can't go anywhere because of your skull. It's kind of, so everything just gets pushed together. And the fatigue is just off the charts. But it doesn't matter, you're doing something, right? And that's always such an important part of any journey, is the fact that we're taking steps forward. And on about the 12th day was the last time that they could do an MRI and actually see what was happening in my brain, because everything gets so squashed together. And I went in for the radiation, did the MRI, and I went home. And I waited for the results, and I call that period scanxiety, waiting for the results to scans. And there are only one of 2 phone calls you can get. And the first phone call is, hey, Mr. Wright, delighted to tell you your results are back, everything's clear, and we need to make a time for you to see the surgeon in 6 months' time. And then there's the other phone call. Mr. Wright, your results are back. We need to make a time for you to see the surgeon as soon as possible so that he can talk you through the results. And in that moment, you know that the news isn't good. But there's nothing that could have prepared me for what came next. That was the first time in my life that somebody else looked me in my eyes and told me that my time on this planet had a finite end date. And I'll never, ever forget his words. His exact words were, by my best guess, you have 6 months to live. In that moment, all the blood drained from my face, and my palms became sweaty, and I became irritated and frustrated and angry at myself because I couldn't remember the date. And all I wanted was to be able to work out, to calculate when does the 6 months end. And I was frustrated because you've made this appointment, Richard. You got here on this day. How can you not know what day it is? And finally it dawned on me, and I did the mental arithmetic, and I realized that the 5th of December that year was my checkout time. That I could literally take my calendar and tear out all the pages because it just wouldn't exist. And then my next thought was that I probably wasn't going to have another Christmas. And then my next thought was of my 2 little girls waking up on Christmas morning without their dad. And then I got angry. I felt this vitriol boiling out of me, and it was aimed at the only other person in the room. And as much as I know that my neurosurgeon didn't give me brain cancer, he was there and he was the messenger. And that's kind of what we do, isn't it? We take it out on the people that deliver the messages. And I raged. And it was like, how dare you? How dare you think that you can tell me how I'm going to respond? How dare you think that you can tell me what's going to happen to me, and who are you comparing me against? Who are these other people? Have they done what I've done? Do you know what I'm capable of? But it's almost impossible not to feel like you are a legitimate victim of this thing that has disrupted your life and turned it upside down. And that's what so often happens en route to our finish line, isn't it? We've got this idea of where we want to be in 12 months' time. We know what the route looks like. We even might know what the finish line looks like, but then something comes and it's a curveball out of nowhere, and it's so hard not to feel like you're a victim of that thing. And I started to wrap up my life, and I literally was starting to count down the days, and I couldn't afford to die at that point in time because I'd been through a divorce and I'd lost everything, and I would just got to the point where getting my head above water, but I certainly wasn't in a position to leave my 2 girls with what I believed was enough for them to set them up for life. And if something had to happen to you right now, could you really afford to die, or your kids left in a position that you're comfortable in? But what do? Do you try and work some more? Are you even able to work because you want to earn that little bit more money, or do you just not work and spend more time with your kids because all you can really give them is yourself? And I became more of a victim of cancer because I became such a cancer warrior. In fact, all of my social media posts ended with 2 hashtags. The one hashtag was hashtag cancer warrior, and the other one was, excuse me, but it just is what it is. It was hashtag fuck cancer. It was, I'm going to take the fight to cancer. And I was on 2 different types of chemotherapy because there isn't one for that type of cancer. I was doing the radiation. I was on a keto diet and absolutely pedantic and on everything that went into my body. I was doing ozone treatment, hyperbaric chamber treatment. I was on
2 minutes, Richard. 2 minutes left just to wrap up. Sorry to interrupt.
no
Yep.
problem.
Yep.
4 different types of cannabis oil. One of them was a suppository, and that wasn't great, but it's the highest dose of cannabis you can take and not be permanently high. You should try that, but not on company time. I was willing to try everything, but here's the thing, right? The more we focus on all the things that are in the way of where we want to get to, the more of a victim we become of those things. So I'd become a cancer victim, even though I don't believe that I've got a victim bone in my body. And I'll never forget the one day, and it's a wonderful story that I tell audiences, was in the car one day with my daughters McKinnon and Bailey. And I was really struggling, and Bailey asked if I was okay, and I kind of answered pathetically, and she replied, nobody said it would be easy. And I'll never forget that moment in a world round, like, where did that come from? Where did you hear that from? And she got apologetic, and she said to me, Dad, I don't know, but I don't know what else to say. And it was the perfect thing. It was exactly what I needed to hear, because nobody ever said it was going to be easy. And how do we show up? How do we present with resilience and grit and all those wonderful things to get to our finish lines when life kind of pulls the rug out from underneath us? And I realized that my future actually started in that moment, that the concept of a future isn't some time in the future. My future is determined by what I think in this moment. And if I can control what I think in this moment, I can control to a large extent that future. And I realized that I needed to put myself on the other side of my diagnosis, because that's the difference between a diagnosis and a prognosis. I can control the prognosis, I can't control the diagnosis. And so I entered a full Ironman with stage 4 brain cancer, because it was 3 months after my checkout time. I needed to aim at something on the other side. I needed to believe that I was capable of something that was impossible in everybody else's eyes. And so imagine then when I went into remission later that year, and I celebrated huge. At that point in time, I was only the 118th recorded person ever to survive a primary pituitary carcinoma. It was that big. And then when it came back for the second time, it was harder, but the red carpet became even more important to me. I was so determined to get there. And on race week, with very little training behind me, I pitched up, and I wasn't allowed to race. The race organizer knew who I was and knew about my circumstances. And he told me that until I could provide a letter from a doctor giving me permission to race, he wasn't prepared to take the responsibility, because I was his responsibility, and fair enough. And so I tell quite a lot about this story in the talks that I do, and show some videos. I was the story of Ironman that year, and the SuperSport crew were following me around. And I finally, on race morning, I had to go through 3 days of testing with a doctor, and went into the medical tent on race morning at 5:45. Still didn't know if I was going to race. The last results came in, and my doctor allowed me to race, and got hold of the race organizer, Paul Wolf, and I got my timing chip literally on the start line. And that's the most important part of your journey, is how you start. And I talk about what that means, how to chunk it down, how to break down the distance, because it's so far. How do you chunk things down to where you want to be in a year from now, but what about today? How do I just handle today? Because that's sometimes all we can handle. And I'd like to suggest that this picture represents your world, and perhaps there's a branding opportunity there. But essentially, what can I control as an athlete? I can't control the temperature of the sea. I can't control the tide. I can't control the current. I can't control the weather. I cannot control the competition. The only thing I've got 100% control over are the thoughts in my head. So I talk quite a lot about how we can control our outcome by figuring out what we can control, what we need to let go of. What are those things, and where does that power lie? And so what's quite interesting in that race is that 91 kilometers.
Sorry, Richard, we're over, we're way over. Yeah. So just last thoughts from you, just to sort of, yeah.
So last thoughts from me, literally, anything is possible. And I'll talk about, so the last thing I want to talk about is your actions. So I wrote a book called The Power of Purpose, and it really is taking responsibility. So whether you're a leader, whether you are, it doesn't matter where you fit in, you're responsible for what you're responsible for. And essentially it is exactly that. It's your actions. We're not judged on our thoughts, or we're not judged on our intentions, we're judged on our actions and behavior. So the last question I want to leave you with is, how do you do all of this, and where do you even start? And I'd like to suggest that you start by booking me, and that way I can help you to get to your finish line.
Thank you, Richard. Great presentation, and yeah, we've booked Richard so many times and for so many conferences all around the world, and he's been extraordinary. There's a lot more to the story, and it is very hard cramming it in. We just need to. Our next speaker actually has got to get a flight to, so I've got to introduce her very quickly. Captain Lundy is a ship navigator and Africa's first female dredge master who is passionate about unlocking Africa's ocean economy. She's over 15 years experience in the maritime industry. As a leader, mother, and wife herself, Lundy's journey has equipped her with the ability to focus on providing sustainable tools for big companies to lead diversity and inclusion. For women, she dared to dream big and became a ship captain. Not many around the world, I believe, female ship captains, that is, and therefore dares women to thrive and assume captaincy of their lives. And for the youth, her zest for a colorful life is so contagious, the youth get cultivated to reach for the endless horizons. As seen on Forbes Leading Women Africa speech, on her Forbes Leading Women Africa speech, sorry, with her piercing phrase, "I choose not to be a rose from the Titanic, I choose to captain the Titanic." And through her popular TEDx talk, Anchors Away, No Rest for the First, this Black mermaid is making waves on land. Over to you, Lundy. Nice to see you.
Well, it's even good to see your face. It's been a while, but thank you so much. Let me tell you about my day. I'm in the Joburg Airport Lounge, and I'm sitting literally at a very dodgy corner because I'm trying to make sure that I do the presentation so well. It's been so crazy. I've had a crazy day, but nonetheless, thanks for the opportunity. I definitely will try to give what I can. And I unfortunately cannot share my presentation that I had prepared at this moment. So I hope that you see me. For me, without the visuals, I then had to grab my blazer to at least make it relevant. So I hope that is going to be relatable. But
tell us your story, Lundy. Tell us your story. Go for it.
Let me bring you on board with me. You're Black. You can't swim. What if you die? What if your parents die? What about your boyfriend? You're going to be gone for so long, for so many months. Are you sure you want to do this? This is an 18-year-old who's just trying to chase a dream. And yet at this time, everything imposed to her, the limiting thoughts that were imposed to her was that it has never been done. Where have you seen a Black, let alone female, let alone African, navigate a ship? And the answer is, I chose not to be Rose from the Titanic. I chose to captain the Titanic. I'm Captain Lundy Ngcobo, and I'm so pleased that you have given me your time. With this, coming on board, having known, and now I understand that seafarers are good storytellers because we've got lots of stories to tell, to cultivate them. What I have done is take time to reflect on my journey. I've been able to work through and rise through the ranks to enable the story that was meant to be translated for Africans, that was meant to be translated for women, for corporates, for the youth. Paul did glance on it in saying, corporates, leading diversity and inclusion. At this time, in a 50,000 gross tonnage ship where I worked, where I got my grooming, Maersk Shipping Line. And by the way, since we're doing PEP stores, no shipping, no shopping. I belong in the family. In this moment, realizing there's different kinds of cultures, so diverse, differing and different cultures within this floating home that are meant to make homely for 9 months, 10 months, 6 months, and get along. They've bid goodbye to their family members and they're hoping to come back alive. The striking story that I've had to reflect on was when we got attacked in the Straits of Gibraltar, a pirate attack, West Africa, where we're all thrown in the void space with your officers, your deckhands, your chefs, and in this void space, no rank, no race, no gender mattered. We all hoped we'll walk away alive. And this is in this void space that we were able to finally cultivate our stories, to see each other for who we are, to be able to understand that we all just are thriving or trying to find our purposes in life, and we ought to hold each other's hands. In this void space, we were able to cultivate a beautiful story to tell And hence I share with you, when you saw the banner, it's claiming your captaincy. And claiming captaincy means that you realize that whatever the role you hold, whether you're a cleaner or an executive, you ought to claim your captaincy. And knowing that if I'm meant to shine the table, I will shine it so bright that if they decide to replace me tomorrow, they will think twice. There's a lot of stories that I've been able to share, but most importantly, behind a young girl that was able to become a ship captain and Africa's first female dredge master with time. I have 3 key takeoffs that I share with the pirate attack, because every organization goes through hurdles, and that is claiming your captaincy, understanding that it is up to you to know that the next promotion, your next big thing is up to you. The voyage, understanding that every day we are the captains of our lives, understanding that every day we are on a journey, and why should the next person be grateful for my existence? My last takeoff are the anchors. We are running organizations, but we are running with empty people. They are fed up, they are not seen. And cultivating our anchors means that we will be able to tap into the DNA of where you're coming from. Why are you here? Are you happy? Are you on board? Who is on board with you? How can we help? I want to share more, but Paul, I'm forced to stop at this. And I hope that I'll be able to translate the story more. Right now, I've been doing roadshows in different kinds of malls, and I didn't know that our tenants in shopping malls and tenants in different kinds. I was in Secunda, Wheatbank, and now Nelspruit, just talking to make sure that people don't have to rely on leadership. It is all up to them that defines the growth of the industry, of the organization, in claiming your captaincy, understanding your anchors, and appreciating the voyage. I'm Captain London Noble. Thanks for having me for this short bit. I wish I had shared with you my presentation. Thanks.
Captain, it's great to see you. What an inspiration to the youth, to the leaders. We love your passion. If there's a quick question, or can we let Londi go? No, Londi, you're free as a bird, and we will come back to you.
Following seas. Thank you.
Thank you, Londi. So our next speaker, guys, we've 4 speakers to go. You're like the A team here. You're pushing through and everything else. And every speaker that's on the call is really going to do their very best to impress you. And I think everybody wants to work with the PEP team in some way. So our next speaker up is Lorraine. Lorraine Jenks. Lorraine is a change agent, tireless activist, thought leader, and multiple award winner. Lorraine has followed her climate change, responsible lifestyle, sustainability, environmental and greening trends for 50 years. Her experience in sustainability began in California in the 70s, working with the EPA, before returning to South Africa for 15 years as contracts and procurement manager for 82 hotels in Africa's largest hotel chain. Now, with 30 years in hospitality and a remarkable, wide and varied travel history, Lorraine has a deep understanding of challenges related to environmental issues, impacts, adaptations on climate change, and the devastation of the ecosystem. Her brainchild in business, Hotel Stuff, was born in 2001 and followed by her sister, Green Stuff, a database of only eco-friendly products. Lorraine and Green Stuff stood on the forefront of the green wave in South Africa, breaking new ground in many quarters. She has now been honored with 23 awards to date. There's numerous topics Lorraine does talk on. We won't go through them all now, but it's pretty much anything around ESG, climate change, for private and public sectors, a number of deeper issues, which will become apparent during your presentation, which is incredible. Lorraine, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. That's the long bio. I sent you a short bio. But anyway, most of the stuff's there. It's just so absolutely fabulous to be here. So I prepared a some slides that will appeal to the PEP people who are watching. This is not a typical keynote that I would give or training that I would do, but it's targeted at the people who are in the room today. So now what? I thought I would catch their attention with this title. Now what? Sustainability and degrowth as cohorts. PEP for people and planet, because I know they're going there and they are well on their way. Wildfires, drought, floods, botfly. Insects are moving. They're moving away from the heat. We never had them in South Africa. They're here from Zim. Those are the climate challenges. Deforestation, part of what we call ecocide, destruction of the biodiversity, extinction, animal cruelty, cheap imports. Did you know that your your puffer jacket was stripped from a duck while it's alive instead of the duck being combed? Child labor, fast fashion, terrible problem. I've just seen a picture from Peru where there is this a pile of clothing the size of a suburb, like I would reckon maybe Rivonia. We have a finite environment, the planet. Anyone who thinks that you can have infinite growth in a finite environment is either a madman or an economist. So quickly, who, why, what, and how I'm going to fly through these. Please grab what you want and know that I do workshops on every section. There are about 6 workshops summarized here, and I'm actually doing a summary for you. So who is me? A TEDx speaker around the world. I can't believe it, never planned, never even knew there was such a thing. I build fully furnished hotels and homes at big exhibitions. I've just done one last week at the convention center, furnished only with eco-friendly products. I'm a judge for green hotels. I consult to anybody who will listen. I give keynotes. I have 2 online directories. Please use them. They are absolutely free. Hotel Stuff, after my 15 years as procurement manager for the Southern Sun hotel chain. I put everything I knew onto that when I left. And when Al Gore's movie came out, this is 22 years ago, it was the first in the world. I thought, I've been trying to get them to go green. I launched Green Stuff, which identified any green products. And it's from that, it's like Yellow Pages, from that directory that we furnish our educational projects. And my awards, that I still am totally amazed. I think sometimes it's because the only people who do, I'm the only one who does what I do. I was going to tell you a story about why I'm here, but I can't because we haven't got time. So you won't hear about my time in California. You won't hear about when you shouldn't get married. And I'll tell you what I did at Southern Sun. And the bottom on the right is none of your business unless you let me come and talk to you. So why? Climate and ecocide. These are 2 full day workshops with all the detail. I'm not going to give it to you because I'm sure you're fully aware with the positions that you hold where you are. Otherwise, let me come. I'm a Montessori teacher. I speak plain English with images, and you will totally understand. These are the 3 groups that are desperately trying to get us to change our habits, mostly for CO2. But the last one is the one that really appeals to me, is where we try to restore and conserve 30% of our natural environment by 2030. Protect 30% of our land and oceans by 2030. And what? What is the jargon and the hype that flies around all the place, just overwhelms people? Words like Go Green, SDGs, sustainability, regenerative, circular, planetary boundaries, net zero, ESG, and degrowth. All of them are a workshop in their own right. But they actually all mean pretty much the same thing and have pretty much the same goals. So we're quickly going to concentrate on only 2, that's ESG and degrowth. ESG has always been around, but finally, they've taken the environmental section of it seriously. It means environment, social, and governance. So we're now expecting executive decision makers to start measuring the environmental impact, trying to improve it, report on it, because if they don't, people won't invest in them, banks won't fund them, and their customers are going to get fed up and demand that they change and improve. Social South Africa knows what to do. I don't say we do it right, but we pretty much know how to measure it and how to get it right. Governance is a little bit more difficult to measure. It's about ethics. I'm watching half of the TV, what's going on, the whole government's over there. I wish they'd listen. How good are your goals and targets as a company? How good is your reporting as a company? And are you doing responsible sourcing and procurement? People don't realize the incredible power you've got as a buyer with a supply chain that you can demand better service from. So capitalism versus degrowth. And I am the messenger. Please don't shoot the messenger. I'm educating you because we must start thinking about this, and we will. So degrowth does not mean living in a cave with candles. It does not mean grazing kale in a forest. It means not socialism, communism, anarchism, nationalism, or anti-capitalism. It means living more simply. It is capitalism's own solution to deal with overconsumption. So we actually still use the capitalist model. We just approach it differently. So the issues that degrowth is concerned about is overconsumerism and materialism. Resource depletion is the thing that breaks my heart. That's why I work so hard. We can talk about climate change, but we cannot cover that unless we also cover the destruction of our ecosystems, environmental degradation, social inequality, overwork and stress, and financial instability, which COVID taught us a lesson there very, very quickly. Degrowth alternatives to capitalism, localized economy, just to bring back stuff. All those factories that closed when I was working for Southern Sun, they closed one after the other, and we started bringing in cheap rubbish imports. Redistribution of wealth and resources. This is actually between the global north and the global south. The global north really has to start demanding and using and consuming less, and allow the global south to catch up. Work time reduction. There's lots of talk now about reducing us to a 4-day week. Starting to look at alternative economic models, democratic decision makings, and the degrowth of GDP. Did you know in Bhutan, they don't have GDP. They don't measure money. They measure happiness. They have GDH, measurement of happiness of the nation. So bravo to PEP. I looked at your sustainability. I was amazed and blown away. PEP is doing absolutely incredible work. You've opened factories. You've even got an off-the-grid showroom. Well done. And I think PEP can be a vanguard. You are uniquely qualified, being completely South African, well-established, an incredible network of people and shops all over the country. Can you imagine the influence that you can have? Be the vanguard. I'm going to run through some ideas of what we've just done last week with the green exhibition, and let me help you. Let's do this. There is a shop that's tried it, and they make me laugh because they've put up a vertical garden of what? Of plastic plants. So that's a typical PEP store. Have a look at that. It's got the same products in it, except they are all eco-friendly. They're going to cost a little bit more, but have a dedicated aisle in your shop, just one. Mark it very well to say you are only selling eco-friendly products, or a separate section, because your low-income customer is a value buyer. He knows quality and she knows longevity. They buy things that are practical, not fashionable, and let's honor their dignity and give them a beautiful space to shop. They will spend more to get better quality. No synthetics or plastic, hemp, flax, bamboo, wool, leather. Look at local, ethnic, basic, modular, repairable. Look at your LED lighting in that section, your paint, your flooring, everything can be eco-friendly. How are you going to do it? Use the life cycle assessment. I use it in every talk I ever give. Everything you do every day impacts on the environment. So have a look at where it comes from, how it's transported, how it's manufactured, how it's distributed, how it's used, and where it ends up. Think of those things we spoke about at the very beginning, the whole way through that process, and pretend you're holding the hand of a small child. And he wants to know where something comes from. It's going to be quite hard to tell him and be totally honest. And when you have to tell him it's going to end up in landfill, he's going to say to you, gosh, Dad, you knew, but you bought it anyway. So how are you going to choose? I'll share this with you. If you give me a shout, you get it as a procurement and supply chain manager. It's a template that does all the sums for you. We have to choose between some different products or services. Wonderful, girls, for choosing a partner. I'll send it to you. Just ask me. So my topics, as Paul mentioned, are very wide ranging. Give me a shout. It's all about motivation is what I do, using my Montessori style and my humor, because everybody wants to know. They've woken up. I've been doing this for many years. In the last 2 years, there's been an explosion in interest. So remember, your shareholders and everybody are watching you. Customers are watching you. Nature is watching you. Your food is watching you. You are what you eat, but you are also what your food eats. But most important of all, the children are watching you. And they're going to say, Mom, Dad, you knew. What did you do? Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. It's a topic that's very close to our heart, and it needs a lot of figuring out, doesn't it? So, we really thank speakers like you that go around the world, just helping everybody to make sense of it, and not be in that situation a lot less. Are there any quick questions for Lorraine, or are we happy to sort of move through?
Good, Cavell. Thanks.
Sipo, do you want to say? You want to ask?
No, I was saying it's all good. Lorraine, we've got a much nicer picture for you for our stores. We've got a new concept called Fetura, and it looks fantastic. So we'll share that with you as well.
Send it to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for your research, Lorraine. They say feedback's a gift. So, we can't always apply the ideas, but feedback is always welcome. Right, on to our next speaker. Yimpini Mabunda is the president and CEO for Southern Africa at General Electric, somebody close to your heart in some ways, Lorraine, I'm sure. He has 25 years plus background in leading major consumer goods, energy and telecom businesses across Africa and the United Kingdom. Yimpini is a recognized industry leader who sits on a few external boards, quite a few, I think, as non-executive director and chairman. Yimpini is a sought-after speaker and panelist in various industry and leadership events across major conferences, business schools, and corporates on the African continent. More recently, Yimpini published a highly successful business leadership book titled Take Charge, which captures his life lessons on the journey to CEO, as to enable others to learn practical tips and strategies to accelerate their own career success. So looking forward to hearing you. Yimpini, over to you. We've got 10 minutes and then maybe a few minutes if there's any questions after that. So all the best. It goes fast. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Paul, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can see and hear me well. So my story and provocation to leaders is that they have what it takes in them to deliver better results than they currently are. My book, Take Charge, it's really about helping people accelerate their career growth. And I do that in 3 ways. Firstly, I challenge people, provoke people to demystify and look in the mirror about some of the things that hold them back in terms of progress and success. To really understand themselves better and say what makes them tick and deliver, and to give them practical examples, mostly from my journey, but from other things that I've experienced, to say it can be done. And in fact, it is made to look more difficult than it really is. So I've just done a sample of one of the topics along the Take Charge journey or Take Charge ecosystem, where I say own it and deliver. So I just given one example of some of the provocation that I do. So I'm going to try and do that in 10 minutes. So if you allow me, for example, if this thing is that one of my provocation, for instance, is I wonder if your beliefs and what you believe to be true is a barrier to your success. And all of us is knowing too much holding us back. One of the things that I insist on take charge is that unlearning is as important as learning, because sometimes knowing too much and the things that we believe in can be the inhibitor to our success, can be the things that hold us back from breakthrough and from innovation. I'll give a couple of examples. Ever wondered why Walmart, being the huge retailer that it is, did not start Amazon? It would have made sense for an Avis to expand their business into Uber, disrupt themselves, or Nokia into Apple and Samsung. But instead, they were killed by those businesses. Why did Airbnb not get started by Marriott? Or indeed, WeWork not started by GrowthPoint? So all of these businesses have been disrupted in many ways, and they lost share to these unicorns. But the question is that, why did they not do it themselves? And I would argue that it's because they know too much. And they did not realize that they know too much, and the legacy is what held them back. For some of the examples in recent times is that we believe, or we used to believe, that you need to own a fleet of vehicles to run a taxi business. You definitely need real estate, like a physical infrastructure of hotel rooms to run a hospitality accommodation. And Airbnb says, hell no, they don't own any real estate, and they're a big hospitality provider. Uber does not own vehicles, but they've disrupted taxi business globally. And the protests are there for anyone to see, right? And typically when we want to grow our business, when we want to expand into new areas, a new project, a new division, what do we do when we want to get in there? We want new headcount. We want more resources. We want more office space. But actually, what I've demonstrated over and over again in my career is that the people you need to drive your expansion are within your team. How often do we actually think about repurposing the people that we have? Because quite often, when we open a new division, some of the existing people become less challenged. They can be repurposed. Some of the existing things, we open a new division because what is happening today is starting to become a little bit flat in terms of growth. Think about a bank. When you open and grow your app or online banking, your branches suffer. But we never reduce the number of branches until it's too late. At Vodacom, I led an entire end-to-end digitalization of the business without even knowing much about digitalization. And we're able to take out R1 billion out of costs. And with that R1 billion, we're able to invest into new areas like you're seeing today, fintech for Vodacom, like fiber and so on and so forth. No investor is going to give you all of the money that you want. You need to create your own luck. I've been able to do that quite successfully. At GE, we've repurposed aviation employees into healthcare by simply retraining them, because an engineer is an engineer. We had a huge drop in demand during COVID of airline services. And our department that works in the airline, we're not busy, but we had a huge boom in healthcare. And previously we've seen this as different divisions. And we said, why don't we take people from there to the other side? So quite often we hold ourselves back and say, they do not know how to do healthcare because they're aerospace people, but people will surprise you. And I was like, unlearn the silos that we create for ourselves, where we say someone in sales cannot do numbers because they're in sales. We say that someone who's from HR cannot go into logistics, and then we end up underutilizing our resources. All of us today, conventional wisdom is that we need drivers to make cars move. You go to Silicon Valley today, you can take a taxi in Silicon Valley to go anywhere around the area, Palo Alto, without a driverless taxi. It's working, it's licensed. So for this breakthrough to happen, someone had to reimagine driving and say, why is it that you always need a human being to control the car? And indeed, there's a whole industry about drivers, training drivers, giving license, and so on and so forth. A lot of that is going to become redundant in a few years' time, because you don't necessarily need a driver to make the car move. So we had to unlearn the belief that you need a driver to make the car move. Government regulation is another big thing. Government will not allow it. The rules don't allow us to do this because of X, Y, Z, without even challenging those regulations. Government today allows for different ways of vetting for credit. You can extend credit without a proof of income because you can look at the payments behavior of a person. Eskom, because of the crisis we have today, the government has given what is known to be a fundamental change in the regulation of electricity provision. We can now log into the grid. IPPs can produce more than 1 megawatt and so on and so forth. The changes that has been made in the provision of power in the last year is far-reaching more than what has been done a decade ago. When I was in Uganda, I was able to launch a beer in partnership with the government, sharing royalty. Before I did that, I was told Diageo will never allow that because we don't do business with government. Government is seen as corrupt, compliance rules do not allow. But then I went there and I asked the hard questions to understand what is the spirit behind this? Why is this not allowed? And quite often, if you solve the reason why something is banned, then it gets unbanned. But many times we don't even go there and challenge because we're too afraid to ask the hard questions. What business are you in? Is our business computers or is our business alcohol? Why do you need to define it like this? Is our business soft drinks? What business is Coca-Cola in? In the middle there, Coca-Cola announced that they are moving into alcohol, and Coca-Cola have launched brands into alcohol. We've known them as a soft drink company for decades. Heineken is the biggest beer company. 30% of their income now is coming from non-alcoholic drinks, including making beer that has no alcohol. And indeed, many wine industry players, gin and so on, have got non-alcoholic drinks. Apple was a computer company famous for the Mac. Today, they make 80% of their income from an iPhone. So we need to demystify what we believe our business is in, because businesses are a platform. Low-income consumers, there's lots of stereotypes about low-income consumers. They don't use data, they don't use internet. They can't afford technology. They love human contact. That's what we say about them. Until you go to Capitec and ask them, Capitec will tell you that they've got 20 million customers. 11.2 million of those are banking regularly on the app, and most of them are low-income consumers. So our belief systems is what hold us back. And my question to you and to the audience is, what do you believe about your business that is inhibiting you for breakthrough success? That is the challenge. What is it in your head, in your mind, in your experience that is actually holding you back from success and holding you back from avoiding being disrupted and being the disruptor? Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to unlearn as I conclude. It is time to ask, what if what I believe to be true was not true? Someone said to me, we all believe that 1 + 1 is 2. It's not that we've ever proven it. It's because we were taught that 1 + 1 is 2. Someone told us 1 + 1 is 2. Is it possible that that is not correct? And if we know that that is not correct, what opportunities does it open up for us? So it's time to unlearn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mpini. And a true problem solver. They say the world's leaders will be problem solvers going forward, not linear thinkers. And you just demonstrate that. I could honestly listen to you all day long. You are so interesting, and I think your introduction does not do you justice. I think Mpini must be one of the most connected people I know in South Africa. He's very in tune with what's going on where, and kind of just, he's curious. And challenging the status quo all the time. It was a lovely presentation. Do we have any questions for Mpini at this stage? He does, in a normal format, would love a Q&A environment, because you can imagine with a full audience, there's going to be a lot of questions for him, and he takes to that very, very well, just for the record. But how are we feeling, guys? Sorry, Mpini, it's been a long afternoon, and I think everybody's keen to sort of move to the next. But if there's any questions now, or are we happy to move on? All good, all good. Mpini, you're a star. Thanks
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Right. So up next we have no stranger. In fact, I'm not even sure I should be introducing our next speaker because he is so well known. Now, we know we don't necessarily need to showcase Justin, right? But I thought, how could we have a sort of a showcase for PEP, an engagement with PEP, without not having Justin Cohen present? And also, I don't know if everybody on the group has booked, and maybe you're interested in hearing Justin's latest latest talk. So Justin, I'm not sure I'm actually going to introduce you. I think I'm just going to hand you straight over to the team, and you can talk about your experiences with PEP. We know you're one of PEP's biggest ambassadors on the speaking circuit. I can certainly testify to that, and lovely to have you on the call.
Paul, thanks so much. High five, Dynamo. Hi, Cavell. Hi, guys. I got to say I'm really excited because as I say I got to be careful what I say here, because I know we're not just talking to PEP, we're talking to PEP Core, and so great to see you, Cavell, and also great to see the PEP Core team. But I can't help myself. It's just always such a delight to connect with PEP. And I am going to say PEP Core because it's about culture. And PEP Core, you guys have some of the most inspirational cultures on the continent. And I thought in the few minutes that I have here, I would share a little bit about culture. There's 7 keys to a winning culture. And the question is, well, what is culture? Samantra Ghoshal describes culture as the smell of the place. And Ghoshal was a professor at INSEAD University, and he had come from Calcutta. Now in Calcutta, midsummer, it's 40-degree heat, 98% humidity. All you want to do is drag yourself through the day. You're lethargic. You really just want to sleep. But he said, in Fontainebleau, which was the forest outside Paris, where he was a professor at INSEAD University, in spring, well, there the sky is blue, the birds are tweeting, and all you want to do is jump and sing a song and throw a stone. The same person, 40 degrees in Calcutta, spring in Fontainebleau, and you get a completely different result, different behavior, different emotional state, and that's culture. Culture is the conditions that we create to bring the best out of people. It's the conditions that we create. So with these 7 keys to a winning culture, and I really do feel like I am preaching to the choir again. I know some incredibly inspirational cultures in PEP Core, but particularly PEP with being in the 1% most inspirational cultures in the world. Well, you can feel it when you walk into a store, right? You can feel what is the smell of the place. And one of the qualities that I really want to focus on, and this comes out of your PEP Core mission statement, that PEP Core mission statement, making a positive difference in our customers' lives. Now, we're going to focus on that term, positive difference, because what we see in these inspirational cultures is positivity. How does that manifest? People make eye contact with one another. I'm delighted to see Cavell. And as I came in, he gave me that high five. He connected with me, right? It is that emotional connection that we have within teams. Now, here's what we know. The single biggest predictor of a high-performing team is how team members feel about one another. How they feel about one another. Isn't that incredible? If they like one another, we see high performance. If they don't, we see the opposite. Now, we might think, well, I just either like that person or I don't like that person. But hey, most people that get married love each other, and yet 50% get divorced and hate each other. So what's the difference? It's the same people. Well, the difference is what they are doing. How do we cultivate that kind of positive connection? I always used to say in the road shows with PEP, what really for me encapsulates this incredible culture is people love what they do. They love who they do it for, right? It's the positive difference for the customer, but they love who they do it with. So how do we create that? Again, I've only got a few minutes, but I want to give you some practical ideas. And the key here is the number one reason people leave a job. Folks, the number one reason people leave a job, it's not money. Money is 6 on the list. The number one reason is lack of appreciation. They feel unacknowledged, unvalued, like people don't care. So how do we create these high appreciation teams, because high appreciation, high praise, high performance. And it's quite phenomenal how this actually impacts our creativity, our focus, the ability to make that difference in our customers' lives. So there's a beautiful study at Cornell University. They take a group of doctors, they divide them into two, and before they go in to do a diagnosis for liver cirrhosis, half the group, they give them a little token of appreciation, just to say, thank you, we really appreciate the great work that you're doing. The other group get nothing. They go in, they do their diagnosis. Well, the ones who got that little token of appreciation achieved their diagnosis in half the time. Now, just in case you think they were cutting corners and weren't doing the job well, not only did they do it in half the time, they were nearly 20% more accurate in their diagnosis. That means they saved more lives. And the one difference, they felt appreciated. They felt acknowledged. When we feel appreciated and acknowledged, it raises our emotional well-being. Essentially, it raises our happiness. The Parnassus Workplace Fund only invests in happy companies. It has a 7% higher return than average. One of the most immediate ways that we can raise that happiness is actually letting people know that we care about them. We see them. You know, greetings are interesting. The English greeting doesn't mean a whole lot. Hello, it could be a grunt. Often it is. The Zulu greeting, man, there's power in the Zulu greeting. The Zulu greeting is Sawubona. I see you. I see you. I don't see whether you're young or old, male, female, black, white, rich, poor. I see you. I see your honor, your potential. And when I really see maybe your divinity. An amazing thing happens when we see people in this way. They reflect back what we see, treat people as they can be. That's what they become capable of being. And again, so much, to be honest, about what I've learned about culture, I've learned at PEP. The way that you have created this unique way of connecting. High five dynamos. It was such an honor to be called a dynamo by Cavell at the start of this. Because, hey, do you want to be a staff member or do you want to be a dynamo? Think about how that transforms your behavior. If you're a staff member versus a dynamo is energetic. What is the language that we use that actually creates the outcome? Language doesn't just represent reality, it actually creates reality. That high five, I got to tell you this, Cavell, you're going to love this. I did a session for De Beers and I was talking about PEP and I was talking about the high five. And I said, you know, most people, they shake hands. Now, where does that come from? That's also culture. Well, that's European medieval culture. You shook hands to show people you didn't have a weapon. Why must we accept the way that they used to do it in Europe in the medieval times? And you guys said, no, we're going to high five. Just think about the energy level versus somebody comes for you. For a guy, it can be a little intimidating when that handshake comes down there versus a high five. You're raising the body up. You're lifting the posture. You see how that is going to shift your mindset, how that's going to shift what you do. This is the consciousness about culture that we need if we're going to truly succeed. So I said that there's 7 keys, and that critical one is that positivity. We see it. That doesn't mean we ignore the tough stuff. I love that Sekula Kunya. We are learning, we are growing, and you see that is in practice. When on the road shows that I had the privilege to do with PEP, after every session, we're giving each other that feed forward. What is feed forward? Feed forward is feedback that enables you to move forward. Yes, we reinforce the positive. This was great, but what can be greater? What can be greater? It's a lot easier to give that critical feedback, and people want it. They really do, but they want it in the context of feeling loved and appreciated. And if we do that, and that's what I see happening, and certainly that's what happens over those showcases, we can, or rather over the tour, then we are going to get a far better result. So what is the other critical one? And this, again, I have to say, drawing right from PEP again, but I think Pepcore as a group really gets it in that mission statement. It's purpose. Great organizational cultures are driven by purpose. And I'm going to take a little risk here because I've learned so much from this organization, but maybe just it's about an outsider coming in and seeing something that maybe we don't always see ourselves. So forgive me, but I can't help myself. For me, this critical point about purpose, the story that I always like to tell, because by the way, that's also a powerful way to build culture through storytelling. I'm going to close with that. But on purpose, if we're going to understand what purpose is, let's tell a story. In fact, if we're going to understand our values, most organizations, unfortunately, we pay lip service to values. And if you ask most people, they don't know what they are. I actually challenge my other clients to go into PEP stores, and I say, go into PEP store and ask anyone in that store what their values are, and they'll tell you. And I believe one of the reasons is because you tell stories, and stories are practical examples, real case studies, best practices that show us what that value is in practice. So one of the best ways that I have to really give people a deep sense of what purpose is about is to tell the story. That 20 years ago, well, it's now 22, 23 years ago, when PEP was nearly bankrupt, my understanding is that if you ask people what the purpose, what the mission, why we were here, they'd say we sell clothing, right, to LSM 3-6. And I know that your mission statement has changed over time, but I think at core, the purpose is we serve remarkable people who have to get by on a very small budget so that they and their families can live with dignity and pride. And I got to tell you, when I speak to organizations here and abroad, and I share that, it's not infrequent that there are individuals who well up a bit when they hear that, serving remarkable people. But sometimes I get a little pushback, is that maybe, just like all, lovey-dovey, let's sing Kumbaya? What is the impact of that? And for me, the impact is so clear in the results. Because if we just provide cheap clothing, and of course it's not cheap clothing, right? It's clothing cheaply, right? This is quality clothing, because if we give people cheap things, they're going to fall apart. We can't respect their pride, right? This is about high that. And by the way, one of the things that I have heard, and I've yet to hear it in other organizations, people at the upper level of an organization and lower level saying, I know I could be earning more doing less at another company, but I choose to be here because here I know I'm making a difference. So talk about retention of top talent. But what I love is the impact on the business. I was actually doing a session for a telecoms company a couple of months ago in Malaysia, and I was saying that one of the biggest providers of mobile phones on this continent is PEP. Now, how could that have happened if we said we sell clothing? If that was our reason for being, then that's what we would be doing. But to say we serve remarkable people, have to get by on a very small budget so that they and their families can live with dignity and pride. Now we start to say, well, how can we better serve them? Why should only, and this is the amazing thing, that today, blue collar workers, gardeners, helpers have one of these. And that's thanks to this organization, because, in the early days, to have a smartphone, you did need to be rich. But if you're going to serve remarkable people, and that's what got you, onto a plane to China to source those parts to create, that smartphone, that everybody should be allowed this, that everybody should have this incredible opportunity, this device. People are talking about AI. A lot of my clients ask me to talk about AI. I'm like, guys, we already have AI. We already cyborg. The cyborg extension is in the palm of our hands. And thanks to your purpose, almost everyone in this country has access to this incredible artificial intelligence. We have a chance, ability to learn and grow and start businesses. And so I feel like I need to hold back here a little bit because I know that, again, that this is a much bigger group, and I know that the impact of purpose throughout the group has been absolutely had this ripple effect across South Africa. You truly do make a positive difference in the lives of your customers, in the lives of this beautiful continent. So great to see you all. Great to be with you. Back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Justin. So we thought you'd enjoy that. But a sort of a quick appearance with Justin himself. Any questions for Justin before we move on to our final speaker? No, Cavell, were you reaching for your mute?
Yeah. No, sorry, not so much question, but Justin, just a thank you, and it's good to see you again. I hope that we can catch up soon, and thank you for the role you played and for being an ambassador, not just for PEP, but for the group. Appreciate your input.
Cavell, you're very welcome. Real privilege to be with you guys, and thank you for the great work that you continue to do. You really truly are an inspiration. And maybe I'll just say one more thing, because I can't help myself. You know, one of the things, Cavell, that I know Darby used to say, and it was this incredible point that as an inspirational culture, we know from Barrett that the next stage is toxic. We go from inspiration to toxic. The idea that we sustain, that a culture is just inspirational, actually, this is the brilliant thing that you guys realize, is that you have to sustain this. You have to consciously create culture. Culture is not something we add to the company. Culture is the company, and it can be toxic or inspirational, but to keep it inspirational, I know the incredible hard work and consciousness and care that you put in to make that happen. So thank you for being an inspiration to really corporate South Africa and beyond.
Excellent point, Justin. I was actually thinking the same thing getting on the call. You know, how do you've got big challenges now. You've got such you've reached such levels, and now how do you stay there is probably just as hard as how do you get there, right? So yeah, well, we're here to help. Great. So onto our final, thank you, Justin. Onto our final speaker now for the day, who's one of my favorite speakers on the African continent. I think he's got a marvelous sense of humor. I think he's got a great persona, is Derek Bunga. Derek is an entrepreneur and managing director of Public Image, where he works with organizations and professionals on improving their emotional intelligence, communication, and soft skills to increase their earning potential. His customers are in banking, telecoms, hospitality, media, nonprofit, and manufacturing. He's a certified emotional intelligence practitioner with GNOS International. Derek is a keynote speaker at conferences, launches, and sales meetings. He is a corporate MC and moderates local and international events, and is an ambassador with Pan-African Advocacy Group, Africa 2.0, and not least, a fitness and nutritional trainer. So over to you, Derek. Take us away. You're the final speaker of the day, and we couldn't have chosen anybody better from that point of view.
You are too kind, Paul. Thank you very much. I hope everybody can hear me. You perhaps forgot to mention that I am in Nairobi, Kenya, where it's about 5:30, going on 6 right here. So I'm going to be short, sharp, and sweet, as they say. And I know we've probably been sitting down for an hour or longer. So I'd like to do a very quick activity. Please do not feel that you have to participate, but I'd love for you to do this. And I'd like everybody, wherever you are in South Africa, is to just stand up wherever you are. Just stand up if you can, wherever you are. Wonderful. I'm going to take it that most of you have done that. What I'd like you to do is take your hand and put it on your heart. Now, when I ask people to do this, some people get confused and they put their left hand on the right hand. It is your right hand on your left chest. There we go. I'm assuming all of you are doing exactly that. Now, what I'd like you to do is very carefully, if you can, is to turn around and face the back of whatever room you're in. Turn around and face the back of the room. Awesome, guys. And now, finally, last instruction, I'd like you to take a step forward, no matter how teeny or tiny that step is. I think you guys have done great. Please, you can turn back around, sit down. And here is what I intended to do with that little exercise, other than getting you to move, is because the next few minutes, I am going to bring you to your feet. I did, didn't I? My message in the next few minutes is going to touch your heart. I actually did. I made you put your hand on your chest and touch your heart. My message for the next few minutes is going to turn your life around. I did. I made you turn around and face the back of the room. And my message is going to move your life forward. So there we go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my superpower is to be seen, to be heard, and to be remembered for the right reasons. And I want you to have that superpower as well, to be seen, to be heard, and to be remembered, you wonderful people of PEP. Tom Peters, who is known as the CEO of personal branding, the father of personal branding, if you will, said the most important job in your life is to be the head marketer of the brand called you. The most important job is to be the head marketer of the brand called you. And I truly believe that. How we are seen, how we are heard, how we are remembered is ultimately the destiny that our lives are going to fulfill. So I would like you to begin to start building your brand with intention, with purpose, with direction. I'm going to share a few things with you in the few minutes that we have. I have a formula called the CASH formula for building your brand, the CASH formula for building your brand. Now, this is CASH is an acronym with the letter K, where the K stands for knowledge. And that knowledge is about learning something new, either about yourself, your organization, the world that you live in, the people that you're with every day. That is part of the intention in terms of building your brand or becoming the head marketer or indeed even the CEO of the brand called you. Learning something new, ideally, about yourself. That is the K in knowledge. The A in the CASH formula is for awareness. And that is beginning to have an awareness or self-awareness, should I say, of yourself. What is your mood, your emotion, your feeling at any given point during the day? In fact, self-awareness to me is the gateway to emotional intelligence. And being able to check in with yourself on a regular basis will help you in your interactions and engagement with your target market, with anybody that you have a relationship with or would like to build a relationship with. Having that self-awareness. I wish we could go into more detail about how to begin to explore that self-awareness. But regardless, awareness or self-awareness, that is the A in the CASH formula. The S in the CASH formula is for skills, and specifically soft skills. That is what I concentrate on. I help my customers or my professional clients to be seen, heard, and remembered for the right reasons. So developing and working on your soft skills, everything from your ability to network, to interact with other people, your image, your brand, your professional etiquette, your professional image, working on those soft skills. You know, we come into the workplace and we may be academically qualified. I believe most, if not all of us are. We may have the technical ability to do our skills. The third leg of that three-legged stool is the soft skills. And that generally is what helps people become successful or as successful as they want to be. The H in the CASH formula is for habit. Habit. What are your success habits? What are those small, repetitive actions that you do on a regular basis that allow you to become successful? There's a fantastic book called Atomic Habits, written by James Clear. I think that's a book worth reading, how you can begin to develop these great, small, repetitive actions done on a regular basis that over time add up to your professional success. Okay, just going to switch gears slightly and talk about, just imagine that you're meeting somebody who is the epitome of great communication, somebody who is a professional at the top of their game. And if you were to rank that person in three categories, I'm going to call the first category the visual, the second, their voice, and the third, what they say. So the first is the visual, the second is their voice, and the third is what they say. And if you were to give a number, a percentage, if you will, on those three categories, what percentage would you assign to this consummate professional that you meet? Somebody who's at the top of their game, or indeed that you would like to be? Well, I'm going to share with you. 55% can be assigned to the visual. The visual, what do people see? And what do people see? They will see what you're wearing. It's your image. and they will see your body language. So how many of us are intentional? How many of us work hard to make sure that the visual, which is a whopping 55% of being that consummate professional in what our target market sees? 38% will be our voice. And again, how many of us actually work on the voice that we have? And again, when I'm, in my longer training sessions and working with my clients, we work on how you can use your voice, how you can speak clearer. And it's got nothing to do with accent, but everything to do with how you articulate and how you sound, how you're able to use your voice to be able to get your message across. And then if you've done the math, 55, 38 leaves only 7. So 7% is what you say. Now, we can have an intellectual conversation about, is it really just the message or what you see or your voice? But I'm here to tell you that how you are seen, how you are heard, ultimately can make or break the message that you are trying to portray to the people that you are either speaking with or trying to influence or negotiate with. So we can go again a little bit into what does the right image for what you do constitute. And that could be everything from, are you wearing the right colors? Are you wearing clothes that flatter your body shape? Now, these are just seeds that I'm planting in all of you to begin to, if you haven't, intentionally think about every morning when you get up. And whether you're working at home or you are coming into the office, what is the image that you want to portray? If indeed 55% is what people are going to take in terms of how they judge you, how you're seen, how you're heard, how you're remembered. Body language. Did you know our bodies can change our minds and our minds can change our behavior? In fact, being able to intentionally use body language, so whether it's in gestures that I'm using, our previous speaker, Justin, I saw he was very animated in using his body language to send his message across. And this goes beyond that. I mean, we're here speaking to you, the audience that's watching us, but even how you sit, how you walk. Our heads are not just to take us from here to the next room, but there should be an intentionality in how you carry your body. As I've said, our bodies change our minds and our minds change our behavior. And ultimately, that can change our performance. Now, I want you to think about the best boss you have ever had, the best leader you have ever had, the best teacher, maybe even mentor. Just think about it. And I just want you to recall the interactions that you had with this best boss or leader. What are the 3 words that you could use to describe your interactions? And when I say describe, how did he or she make you feel? So typically when I ask this question, I get answers like, I felt motivated, okay? I felt recharged. I felt like I could run through a brick wall. So think about that. Your interactions with your best boss, how do they make you feel? Okay, fantastic. Now I want to take you to the dark side and think of perhaps your most challenging leader that you have ever worked with, the most challenging boss. Okay. Now, again, what are the 3 words that you could use to describe how you felt interacting with this particular person? Okay. And if I was to write those words or how you felt, what would they actually make you feel now? You see, ladies and gentlemen, the way that you show up determines the way people feel. And the way people feel determines the extent to which they will engage with you. So let me say that again. The way you show up determines the way people feel. And the way people feel determines the extent to which they will engage with you. So which are you? And you don't have to be necessarily a boss or a team leader, but how do you show up? What is the interaction? Whether it is a small interaction, walking into an office on a Monday morning, you know, the sort of people you say good morning and their response is, what's good about it? Because of what happened on the weekend. Is that you? Or are you the sort of person who, right from the entrance of whatever office you're walking into, greeting, it could be the security guards with a bright and cheery good morning. How do you show up? How do you make people feel? You know, ladies and gentlemen, that what I have shared with you is my introduction to the definition of emotional intelligence. And that is really about how you make people feel. And more than that, it is about actually making intelligent responses to those either positive or negative emotions that we all experience on any given day. So how do you make people feel? That determines the extent to which they'll engage with you. And if somebody makes you feel, you know, we call them unhealthy or strong emotions, anger, sadness, anxiousness, do you have an intelligent way of responding to those? Remember, this is about being seen, being heard, and being remembered for the right reasons. I know we've been sitting here for quite a while, so I'm going to try and wrap up even within the next few minutes. The last 2.5 to 3 years, obviously our lives changed. This black swan of an event, which nobody expected, changed the way we do business forever. I remember seeing headlines. The apocalypse is upon us. The apocalypse is nigh. The apocalypse has arrived. The definition of apocalypse is the end of the world as we know it. And I'm sure for a few weeks or maybe even months, many of us may have thought that. But do you know the Greek definition of the word apocalypse? The Greek definition of the word apocalypse is revelation. Revelation, the revealing of things yet unknown. What have these challenging times, these unusual business times that we live and work in, what have they revealed about you as an individual, as a professional, to your colleagues, and to the people that you interact with? Did you know that zebras don't have ulcers? Think about that for a second. Zebras don't have ulcers. You know the life of a zebra. Zebra wakes up in the morning, walks out onto the plain, begins munching on that juicy grass. And let's just say 10 minutes into that meal, there's another animal also looking for its breakfast. So charging out of the bush comes a lion or some other carnivore. And it chases that zebra for any given period of time. And let's just imagine that that lion gets this particular zebra's cousin, for example. You know, the zebra has a very interesting mechanism. It resumes its meal, which was rudely interrupted, by the way, and completely forgets that a few minutes ago, it was running for its very life. Now let's play that scenario 3 times a day, assuming the zebra has 3 square meals every day. So that happens at breakfast, happens at lunch, eating, has to run for its life, comes back, resumes its meal, forgets it was even being chased without even looking over its shoulder or showing any signs at all. And then once more in the evening. Now, if you were to put yourself in the hooves of this zebra, how long before you said, you know what, I'm done with this life? That, ladies and gentlemen, to me is the ultimate resilience. That is something that we can learn from the zebras. And that's why they don't suffer from, you know, chronic ulcers or any other sort of chronic diseases related to stress. And I want to leave that as my parting shot as we close this wonderful session and have listened to all these wonderful speakers. What is it that you can do to create that ultimate resilience during good times and, yes, during challenging times in order to move forward? It's been a wonderful honor to speak to all of you. I'll leave you the words of Maya Angelou. I'm sure most of you I've heard this before. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Good luck and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. All the way from Nairobi in Kenya. That was fantastic. And a nice way to kind of end the day. And I must remark on your resilience. Cavell, Laza, Luani, Sipho, I mean, just you're amazing. You stuck it out, and you're we know you're flying the flag for the rest of the teams at Pepcore and the various groups and so on. So, and we appreciate it. So, are there any sort of closing words from yourselves? Anything that you'd like to share? Has this been beneficial to you? Have you sort of enjoyed this kind of format? Yeah, just remarkable that you stood the test of time. We appreciate it.
I will leave it to Cavell, but from my side, what an experience. I really loved it. I enjoyed it. And I love the format. And I think we can just maybe for us to deliberate as a team, say, well, what more value would you like to add? Maybe we could share certain topics that are topical in our space. And then we can then identify speakers that could speak to those topics. And then we take it from there, you know, something like that, just for an alignment before. But other than that, I think this was a brilliant format. I've seen a lot, I've learned a lot, and I think there's great opportunities.
It's a lovely idea, Sipho, and I love your thinking, because it's impossible for a speaker to put across in 10 minutes what they can do. So if you give us topics and we can then say, well, we'll match, but at least you've got the background of some of the speakers that we're going to be presenting to you. It's actually, yeah, I didn't realize that, you know, Derek could do that, or Justin, Lorraine could do this. So great suggestion. And yeah, love to work on that.
Maybe from my side, Paul, first and foremost, once again, just thank you for the initiative. For my side, it is hugely beneficial, and myself and Laza have been chatting on, because obviously we came in here with an agenda to find a conference speaker, but we got a lot more, where workshops and ideas, etc., are now on the table for us. And then just thank you to my colleagues who showed up as well from across Pepcore. I hope it was beneficial to you as well. It will be nice to hear from some of you. But from my side, Paul, we'll definitely be in touch regarding some of what we've heard today. Laza, anything on you? Okay.
Well done, Laza. Well done. Lovely to see you again. Luani, just parting thoughts from you, and well done for staying on.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I was trying to keep the academics like high in the side.
Yeah.
It's been very beneficial. I do conferences for our stores. So there is some very nice ideas that came from the speakers that we can actually put through for them, but also then with a leg standing on the side of support center at head office, there's also for that side of the business a couple of the ideas that we kind of highlighted for us on ourselves. So via the link, I can't remember the lady that sent us the link, but we'll get back via her on where the interest lies and give you feedback. Thank you so much.
Great. Super. Well, we will, as part of our Accelerate piece, we'll definitely send you a copy of the recording so that you've all got that. You can reflect on that, and if there's anyone you want to share certain speakers with, whatever, you've got that sort of library to start with anyway. And we will be, I'm sure the speakers would concur, they'd be very happy to join in any particular meetings for further exploratory sessions. Wonderful. And look at us, 2 minutes to spare.
Well done.
Well, it's not much of a give back. It's 2 minutes, but I hope the big give back was just what you experienced today. It's not often, everybody takes the time out like this, and it's always worthwhile, Luani, to your point.
Yes, thank you so much for that.
Pleasure. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks to the speakers. We're all part of a team, and yeah, great to be here.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Paul. Keep well.
You too.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.